Hello.
Welcome
we don't
to
have
Save the
Bird here
Universe
to
podcast.
do the intro.
As we start talking all at the same time.
Yeah, happens.
Team
We're like,
latency
okay,
sucks.
wait for the other one to start, and then go, and then happens.
You can tell.
already having
You can always tell which podcasts are recorded over VoIP and which ones are recorded in a singular studio across all the podcasts I listen to because of how often people will start a sentence and somebody else like goes because they think they're going to start a sentence, but actually then the latency, then they hear somebody else start saying the thing and like, oh shit, I should stop, I guess. And it just doesn't, it does not happen the same way in the same room. It's amazing how a tiny subtle difference happens like that. So anyway, this is the Spider-Man Homecoming Spoilercast. We're going to start off with that one today.
Spider-Man.
Homing spider missiles. Homing spider missiles. Bird's out of town. No, he's not. He's not out of town.
He's celebrating
he's not in our
Lady
town.
Bird's birthday. Yeah.
The real
He's
tragedy.
always out of town.
Yeah, he's always out of
never.
town. But he's out of town away from a computer this time.
Yeah.
But it's probably in the same building. Because it's Lady Bird's birthday, so we're going to talk about some of the media that we've been dealing with lately, and so
That
on.
Bird refuses to watch.
Yeah, because Bird
he doesn't like
have
superheroes,
time.
apparently.
Oh no,
Oh my
no
god!
superheroes?
What is he?
Bird's-
Some sort of like cultural Marxist? I don't know what to call it.
Bird's taste in movies is eclectic and terrible.
Wait, but it
Oh.
can't possibly be
He
as
will
eclectic as
actively
mine.
go out of his way to avoid good movies so he could watch bad movies and then be angry about the bad movies.
How about old movies?
Yeah, our first ever spoiler cast was me and Bird doing Suicide Squad,
Yeah.
which was cathartic.
Yeah.
That was
We
so
finally saw
cathartic as far as podcasts go. I feel like we should open up by talking about Spider-Man as a character, like not in the movie, but just like what Spider-Man means to us and what we've been exposed to, because that's like a background you actually have to cover when talking about something like this, because it's not like talking about like freaking like when Ozark comes out on Netflix, you're talking about the show Ozark. That's 10 episodes that came out recently on Netflix, and that's the entirety of what it is, period.
Mm-hmm.
But Spider-Man, like everyone has a different history and different particular exposures to subsections of it and crap, and that means different things about what they care about for the character.
Yeah, Carl's music was playing way too loud for whatever game he's going to be
I
playing
need to
this.
listen to music like all the time or I start like zoning out. It just happens. Anyway,
Focus on our voices.
Do you actually
So-
just have tinnitus?
maybe, actually. I very well could. I don't know.
You can't know. Wait, no, you can't not know or not. Do you know what tinnitus is?
I know what tinnitus is.
I was like,
but I've never looked into it enough to know if like I'm even close to having it. It's just not something I care
He
about.
has like restless everything syndrome.
No, tinnitus
Because-
is when you hear constant ringing all the time.
No, I know what tinnitus is. I'm just saying that
You definitely know
he
if you have it or not.
Yeah, he can't keep his fingers still, so he always has to do something. I suppose he always has to listen to something. There just always has to be something going on.
Why didn't you watch
You can't-
Baby Driver?
I want
Baby
to.
Driver
She
is
doesn't.
one. Like Baby Driver is about a character that can't stop listening to music. Except for him, it's because he has tinnitus, which is why I made that joke. So he like constantly listens to music all the time to drown out the tinnitus from story. But yeah,
I will look
that's a
into
cool
it, but that's a
movie.
different spoiler cast we'll have to do later when it probably goes
when you get around to watching
uh,
really cool Edgar Wright movies.
I know. I want to watch the movie, but Shell's like, I don't want to. So it's like,
Well,
okay.
part of it is we've been going
So
to
what
so
you're
many
saying
movies
is
lately.
that Shell and Bird's taste in movies sucks.
Well,
Hey,
Shell's is good. She will watch the good movies. She just won't watch all of the good movies.
Or the interesting ones.
well, I
Yeah.
was wanting to
Let's just
watch
watch the
Logan. I
superhero
was wanting
movies.
to eventually see Ghost in the Shell, even though I knew it was probably going to be bad.
Oh, it's so
want
bad.
to see. I still want to see Valerian, even if it has reviews. At least the spectacle of
Wait,
it will be
Which
interesting.
movie is so bad? Sorry.
Valerian
Ghost in the
has to be
Shell?
better than Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah. I mean, I think
it's not
Valerian's
shitting on
sitting at
Ghost
like a
in the Shell.
60. Well, part of it is Ghost in the Shell is based on a pre-existing Ghost in the Shell movie that's arguably like a really good movie.
Yeah.
Whereas the remake, it went the way of all remakes.
I just don't like the trend of animation being replaced by live action.
Yeah.
We're so off track. But the problem with Ghost in the Shell is it's one of those things like it's actually like the adaptation of Walking Dead, where like they would literally use individual scenes from the original movie, like shot for shot, all the way down to the cinematography and crap. but missed
Wow.
the point of what was supposed to be good about the scene, like even like what was supposed to be the visual focus and stuff like that. And they'd recreate the geometry without like the lighting and stuff like that. So like they fail to create the actual image that they're trying to copy, despite being a way more expensive project for creating images. But also like they would then go on to not be. It wasn't the same movie with the same story at all. It literally was. They basically took a story from a particular arc of Standalone Complex and then grafted all of the iconic scenes of the Ghost in the Shell movie onto it, and neither of them make sense. It is not the story, ultimately, of the Ghost in the Shell movie. Like, it's a weird mess. And, like, no part of the movie works. And there's a whole if you're listening to this right now and you're interested, we did a whole spoiler cast on Ghost in the Shell. Andrew and I watched Ghost in the Shell, the anime movie from both the before times, and then watched the Scarlett Johansson one, and it was a nightmare.
And did she fill the role well, or was everyone's misgivings justified?
She's fine. I'm so not ready to get up in arms over freaking race casting and everything.
Oh, it wasn't necessarily about that. Just
So, Spider-Man.
oh, Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Spider-Man.
I'm going to be just here to keep us on track.
I literally raised a prompt of like, hey, so what was everyone's history of Spider-Man? And then no one responded, and then we started talking about
I
Ghost
was
in the
going to, and you
guys were
did-
talking about music, Baby Driver,
No.
movies that we want to see.
Keith asked the question, and then you started talking about how I have to listen to things constantly, which got
It
us
was
on
because
Baby
the music
Driver.
was so loud and I couldn't stand it.
Anyway,
This is gonna be-
Spider-Man.
Stand
This is going to be a significantly longer
Spider-Man.
spoilercast than it needs to be.
Spider-Man. So I've actually read 400 plus issues of Spider-Man, maybe more.
From what years?
We have different backgrounds.
Yeah, we do. So I've 1 year during college, I was really bored because I'd taken a lot of like easy classes, and I decided to subscribe to the Marvel
during the digital age.
Yeah. So I subscribed to the Marvel online archives for like $10 and then proceeded to just lay on my like couch bed and just read Marvel comics for hours on end. So I eventually honed in on Spider-Man because most of his issues were fairly lighthearted and also cohesive. Like, it still kind of does that thing where it's just like, okay, the Vulture's up to something evil. We have to go stop him. And then like 100 issues later, it's like, we haven't seen the Vulture for a while. Let's bring him back. And like, comics inherently got kind of cyclical, but it was still generally okay because Spider-Man was an interesting and dynamic character, and he always fit with like team-ups fairly
Until
well.
the really
It's
dumb
like-
things happen, like a deal
Yeah.
with the devil.
So there was a...
Oh yeah, by the
there
way,
was a,
just general warning, we'll probably spoil every Spider-Man movie ever made so far, and elements of the comics, and even
Yeah.
maybe some games, who knows. Like, this is a general free to talk about spoilers of all Spider-Man things.
yes. Yeah, spoiler casts are no holds barred, good luck, spoiler
Yeah,
time.
well, holds barred on like Breaking Bad during the Spider-Man
Well,
Homecoming podcast, but
Yeah. So it all kind of came to a head because in the Civil War movie, part of the interesting point is Captain America Civil War took a lot of elements from the Civil War comic book, like plotline, and then cut out all of like the weird stuff. So it was effectively the same ideology without any of the background, which is why the Captain America Civil War movie felt maybe a little weird in terms of like the differences between the two people, because
there's definitely a weird sense of like, wow, that escalated strangely.
Yeah. So in the comic book Civil War, a bunch of like amateur superheroes blew up a town, like a whole town, killing multiple like elementary schools worth of kids and like a bunch of other things.
So instead they replaced it with the Ultron event.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which, I mean, kind of fit the universe, but even during the like lead up to this, because there was the Skrull War, which is right before, where a bunch of shapeshifters took the place of a bunch of superheroes.
Do you think
I
they'll do
will
the
say that
Skrull
as-
War?
Probably not.
I will say that as far as responses to superhero-ish stuff causing catastrophes, and we gotta fight back and have governmental control of this, it makes so much more sense than Suicide Squad did.
Yeah.
The Suicide Squad prompt was, what if next time Spider-Man tears what if next time Superman tears the roof off the White House and kidnaps the president? I'm like, Harley Quinn's gonna stop him? The fuck
Yeah.
is this movie?
No?
So the superhero registration thing made more sense, at least.
Yeah, because they're like, we can't have these superpowered teenagers with no regulations running around.
Yeah.
You know, we gotta more or less either force them to, you know, be collared effectively.
The interesting thing is DC
or
did the
arrest
same
them.
thing with Kingdom Come.
Yeah, so it's a common plot line and it makes a lot of sense. I don't want to get into it too much. But so for Spider-Man, as part of the whole Civil War thing, he takes off his mask in front of everybody. And this was like the definitive reveal.
Oh, because Stark was in the camp of wanting to have them all revealed.
He wanted everybody to be a public, like, facing entity, government employee, so on and so forth, and he convinced Spider-Man to do it because it was the only way Spider-Man could truly protect his family.
And doesn't that put Spider-Man's family in the
At
risk
more
that
risk?
he always said it would?
So it actually puts them in risk, but really what happens is Spider-Man's on Iron Man's side for a very short period of time until he realizes that Iron Man's fucking crazy and is like actually inadvertently gotten a couple of superheroes killed and like is going the way of a totalitarian dictator and he's not stable and all sorts of things. So he switches sides and joins Cap, at which point Iron Man's like, well, you know how I said no matter what I'd protect your family? Now fuck it, they're on their own. At which point like at which point somebody straight up shoots on May and Spider-Man signs a deal with the devil to sacrifice...
With the literal devil?
Yeah. Mephistopheles. Yeah. To save Aunt May's life at the cost of his...
undoing the entire relationship with Mary Jane.
Mary Jane.
Yep.
Like,
So they
retconning out of
become...
existence. Because they were
Yeah,
like,
so they
Spider-Man
become-
got boring when he got married.
Yeah.
Let's make him not
And so-
married.
Well, I think that's another issue with, like, you know how we were talking about, like, sequels and how it's, oh, yeah, the hero's children has to carry on their legacy because they're no longer
Interesting
available.
anymore. Yeah.
Or just the issue of, like, doing a will they, won't they for decades. Eventually you have to let them do the will they. And then eventually, like, shit, but they're married now and it's boring.
Because
deal
then
with
they
the
can't
devil.
have Black Cat and other people, like, coming in and being like, "Row."
So that actually, so as weird and crazy as it sounds, that was actually kind of a good turning point for Spider-Man because they stopped doing the will they, won't they, and they're just like, all right, so Spider-Man's kind of like an alt version of Iron Man because, you know, they've always implied that Spider-Man's like super smart. So he's making like spider gadgets and doing all sorts
whenever
of like
they portray
cool shit.
him, he's almost always like a scientist or some kind of like student, at least at medical locations and things.
Yeah, so he gives up on the whole being a photographer for like chump change because that really does not translate to modern times as well. And they switched him over to being a tech nerd,
And how-
working for MIT more or less.
How does this tie into your connection to Spider-Man? Or are you just
I'm just
summarize
explaining
everything?
where I'm coming from in Spider-Man. So, you know, I'm thinking of Spider-Man
Nowadays,
being
he'd be
this...
a photographer for TMZ.
Yeah, probably.
Well, that's the Tobey Maguire version, right?
But so, like, after a number
There's
of...
not TMZ in the Tobey Maguire version.
But he's still a photographer.
Yeah. He's exactly the same.
But so, for me, I like the idea of Spider-Man being a smart kid that, like, can joke, but also is a fairly competent character, which is why I've always hated the Spider-Man movies. I don't know. That's the background I wanted to go with. Because, like, shall we talk about Tobey Maguire first?
Like, for me, I've been exposed to Spider-Man entirely via adaptations. So, I grew up watching the cartoon, the one that was on in the 90s primarily. And so that's what I know about. Like, I remember Mary Jane turning into a weird puddle and dying on top of a building or something. I'm like, that's... that was weird. Well, I think she was dead already, and then she turned into a weird water clone, but then that died too, and it was like messed up at some point because like the waterman loved her or something.
Yeah, I'd actually had most of the episodes on DVD, I think.
And then I watched the Tobey Maguire movies as they came out, and I watched the first Amazing Spider-Man, and could not bring myself to even try bother going to see the second one after the first one went. And then other than that, like games, like my exposure to Civil War before the movie came out, aside from knowing that it was a thing, because you would see like the hardbound print of it just at places all the time, was that there was Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2 was Civil War arc. So it was split down the center of all the Marvel characters of like Stark versus Iron Man. And that was like 10 years ago or something. Was that when that game came out? Which has come up in previous podcasts because that was the game where when Disney bought Marvel or something like that, like all the licenses expired, and so they lost all the DLC. So there's like a bunch of black silhouettes of characters that you can never have on your roster permanently, which is not great.
Unless you emulate the game, but that's kind of a different deal entirely.
So for me, what was important about Spider-Man was that he's never like, I'm going to save the world from this like extraterrestrial threat or like this global catastrophe. It's always like, this bank robber has a jetpack. He needs to get kicked in the face, is more or less what he was doing. And then a lot of melodrama between interpersonal struggles between people he knows and like and problems within his community. Like protecting his community from problems that arise from his own community.
That was definitely, yeah. I mean, that's always,
Friendly
I
Neighborhood
think, kind
Spider-Man, eventually, like, you realize it means so much more than just the throwaway tagline. It's like, no, he's the neighborhood Spider-Man.
Yeah.
All of his stories take place in this town, and all the villains somehow come from this town, and it's like on this scale. And the moment if Spider-Man was an Ultron, it would be like, why is Spider-Man in the Ultron movie?
Well, so that's actually the interesting part is Spider-Man was in the comic book Ultron arc. Spider-Man has actually one of the like longest running members of both the Avengers and the New Avengers. From what I've seen,
form the New Avengers.
It feels like such a weird idea for a fit compared to the other characters.
It's super bizarre. The interesting point though is he does still kind of fit the neighborhood Spider-Man feel, where like he's there, but like. He's not the mover or the pusher. He's kind of he's the helper, kind
he's
of
like
an assistant
one guy.
character. Yeah, so like you'll have
Hawkeye.
Yeah, he really is kind of in the same position as Hawkeye, and for the most part, actually in the comics, Hawkeye was dead for a while and may still be dead. I don't remember.
It's hard.
They might have brought him
track.
back due to.
Isn't Wolverine dead now?
Yeah, Wolverine has been dead for a couple of years now.
Because they're like, if you're not going to give it back to us, we're just going to kill him. You don't get any more stories. And they're like, fine, we'll kill him too.
Yeah, I mean it works.
Oh, is this about like licensing? Again?
Yeah, because they can't use Wolverine
Fantastic
in the Disney
Four
movies
and X-Men. And is that it? And until recently, Spider-Man were like inaccessible by Disney because the licenses were still rented out for movies.
Spider-Man is still technically inaccessible to Disney.
Yeah,
however,
it's still Sony, but they're working with them.
Yeah, because Sony at least has some brain cells.
Sony's like, we need a loophole here because we want to keep Spider-Man movies to be our thing, but also no one wants to watch them anymore because we're bad at this.
Yeah.
Save us, company we're trying to keep this property away from.
So I would like to, I guess, kind of recount my favorite Spider-Man comic book moment is there was kind of one of those like ridiculous crossover events where everybody's fighting everybody again, except for this time it's 5 of the X-Men have gotten like super powers from the Phoenix Force because Tony Stark decided it would be a good idea to try and blow the thing up, not having no idea what it was going to do. And so, specifically Colossus, the big metal man, and his sister, whose name I can never remember.
I know X-Men characters more than most Marvel universes.
But so Colossus and his sister are like living in some remote area, and I think they've been like kidnapping a bunch of heroes and like locking them away in a hell portal or something silly like that. It got a little bit convoluted, but so everybody like did a rescue attempt and succeeded, but Spider-Man stayed behind to like distract them because if somebody didn't do it, they were screwed. At which point he proceeded to, with both arms broken, trick Colossus and his sister into beating each other up instead. And it actually worked great, in my opinion.
I just imagine it played out like part of Deadpool, where Colossus is just fighting the other almost Colossus.
Yeah. But it was just super satisfying because all he was doing was just making fun of them and like dodging and stuff like that. And it was so perfect. There was no like super punch special like ass whooping combo that they pulled out of nowhere. It's just Spider-Man doing his normal thing. And I really liked that. And it was like super core to his character.
All right. Can you get to mine?
Sure.
All right. Also, that the music was just annoying. In any case,
no one can hear it. Stop talking about the music.
Sorry, I just do like little like hand things, and then he angrily like looks back at me.
Well,
and
it's
like,
because
stop.
you bring it up. I'm like, I'm going to adjust it.
But you don't turn it off.
Now we're talking about it more.
Spider-Man.
Right. So I have an interesting history with Spider-Man. Actually, Marvel and DC Comics in general. So my father grew up in New York City, in Yonkers specifically. And growing up, he would like use extra change or lunch money to buy Superman and Batman comic books when he was young. And as time went on, one of his good high school friends, Bob, actually began to work for Marvel as an inker. And so we have hundreds of comic books in our basement. At this point, I think we've bagged a lot of them, made sure that they were nicely stored away. But we have just issues and issues of comics that my dad himself has collected and ones that Bob has given to him, whether they were like extra issues that he received for like working on them and whatnot. And I think he specifically worked on the Star Wars series, Iron Man, the X-Men. I don't know if he inked any of the ones for Spider-Man, because we have fewer Spider-Man issues in our collection than, say, the other ones. But the ones that we do have are rather interesting. I think I had recounted to you the one where he teamed up with Luke Cage's Power Man to stop a smoke-like villain from getting all of the members of a track team addicted to smoking. Just fun little things like that. So yeah, growing up, we had all of these Marvel comics, particularly ones from the 70s and the 80s. And I grew up reading a lot of those issues. And then there was the animated television series, which I absolutely loved. They brought in so many side characters and like spin-off characters and tie-ins from other Marvel comics that it was always fun to watch. Just ones that we don't even see publicly much anymore. Like, I haven't even seen the Scorpion as of late.
Well, it's because he's a dumb villain. There's a whole like slew of villains prior to the 2000s.
They brought the Rhino in though, and he was pretty dumb.
The Rhino is dumb. I think the Vulture adaptation in the most recent movie was brilliant, but let's hold that off.
Yeah, there's also like Mysterio.
Yeah,
and
but you get
the Hydro guy.
You don't have a Mysterio movie.
To.
Yeah,
no,
he's like one of the most memorable Spider-Man villains for me because he's so ridiculous.
Yeah, and they had done the Dr. Octopus. My brother especially liked Dr. Octopus. We had a Dr. Octopus and a Spider-Man figurine, and I would always be Spider-Man and trying to tear off Dr. Octopus's arms because they were detachable. Oh, fun stuff. So yeah. And then a couple of my friends were just obsessed with Spider-Man as well. So especially when the new Spider-Man movies came out, my one friend, he had like all the Lego sets and all of like the nice 12-inch fully articulated action figures. So we'd play with those. It was a lot of fun. I know this is probably unpopular now, but back then I loved watching the new Spider-Man films because it was like seeing a character from those things that I read as a child.
No, I still like the Spider-Man movies. Well,
okay. 2
of them.
I especially liked it when, he was being Spider-Man as opposed to Tobey Maguire. It's interesting. I always, whenever I hear like Spider-Man's voice in my head, I always go back to the cartoon and just all like the quips, the funny lines. Do you remember when he would like sit next to the gargoyle? And I think the gargoyle's name may even have been Bruce. And he would just like talk with it about his day and stuff. Those were hilarious moments of the television series. I think it was a nod to Batman calling the gargoyle Bruce. But yeah.
I mean, it absolutely was. Okay, so movies. So you said you liked the Tobey Maguire stuff, Keith?
Yep. I had a good...
So you watched all 3 of them, or...
I watched all 3 of them, and like I said, I liked 2 of them.
Okay, so you liked the first 2, and then the third was meh?
Yeah, although I think Spider-Man 3 has a specific thing that goes really in line with Final Fantasy X for me, where the specific scene that everyone makes fun of is like the one I'm most likely to defend, basically. You know what I mean?
So the weird dancing one from 3?
Yeah, because like Spider-Man 10 has the laughing scene, and I'm like, if you've played this game, like the laughing scene's actually like touching and like.
You mean Final Fantasy X? I was like, Spider-Man 10, what?
Spider-Man 10. Yeah, Final Fantasy X's laughing scene that everyone makes fun of, like that's like that has
that
so much reason to
Titus?
exist in its story, and it sounds like dumb fake laughing because it literally is dumb fake laughing. It's like when you hear someone say that you smile until you actually feel like you're smiling and stuff like that. Like, they're literally like experiencing a bad thing and being like, we're going to try to force like jovialty into this scenario because everything sucks. And that's why
Also,
they're
who
fake
knows-
laughing.
Who knows how many times they had to redo that too? Give us a laugh. No, that
And
doesn't
so
sound right.
In Spider-Man
Like,
3, like, at this point, like, it's the third Sam Raimi movie, and Sam Raimi is a particular style of director, and Tobey Maguire has a particular style of Spider-Man where he is just the dopiest shit. Like, he is, like, absolutely, they're playing, they're specifically playing Spider-Man as being this dopey, awkward character that has his own sensibilities and everything. So, like, when you mix Sam Raimi's campy style of making movies with this Tobey Maguire character on what they would think is cool, like, yeah, Venom Spider-Man, like old, like grimdark Spider-Man would totally think that once he's like on top of the world, he would think that everything happening in that scene is what like cool people do. And like it all fits perfectly to me. Like all the bullshit and all the cringe in that scene is like the point of the scene. But man, that movie's a mess. That movie structurally, from a storytelling perspective, is just a nightmare. Like,
somebody had once said that the
mess.
actor for the Sandman seemed like the only person that wanted to be there, and I'm inclined to believe them.
Osborn was amazing as
Let's bring back Goblin
not
again.
Huh?
Let's bring back Goblin, like just the part where they brought back Green Goblin for a third movie.
Oh,
Yeah.
God
what
damn
I
it.
meant to say was Defoe. Defoe's Goblin was really good.
James Franco did an okay Harry Osborn.
Yeah,
Or-
but yeah,
Hadn't
two of
he
the
originally-
the two obvious standout things are Willem Dafoe and the guy that played Jonah Jameson.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like those are perfect caricatures of like the fun. Jameson's a perfect character. I don't know if Willem Dafoe is a perfect character of the original character, but he sure as hell carved out a character for himself that no one will forget now.
He does not in any way, shape, or form visually resemble him, or
Yeah.
even honestly, like the acting. It's kind of like Heath Ledger as the Joker.
Yeah, I was about to say,
completely
like, it feels like the Joker from Dark Knight before that ever happened.
Yeah.
Of like, no, we
Right.
made a super like carved into your brain, memorable superhero character right on the screen.
Yeah, people have been wanting Defoe to be the Joker for years, but
I think he made a perfectly fine Green Goblin.
Yep.
Yeah.
And honestly, at this point, I think the Joker.
J.K. Simmons. I never remember his name. God damn it.
J.K. Simmons did an absolutely wonderful
Lemons.
Joe Gemma. Yeah. But so, I don't know. I could not handle 3. That dancing scene, I can totally appreciate it now that you've like brought that up a couple of times. But at the same
Watch
time,
some Sam Raimi movies. Watch Drag Me to Hell or Evil
I think
Dead.
my main problem is just like
I think-
the movie was so unredeemable that no matter what he was trying to do there, it's just like
Yeah.
this is garbage.
Oh yeah, it was in the middle of a bad movie, which is a problem. But like that,
Yeah.
as a character thing, it makes sense. The only part that doesn't make sense is the part where like the scene is somehow happening, but you could see that as like heightened reality of like his bullshit perspective on life at that point because he's all venomized. Or you could just be like, no, it's Sam Raimi having fun because this was back in the tiny window that is dead now, where superhero movies felt like some sort of director's touch and feel.
Yeah.
Like, we
Now it
tried
is
having
very
that again when
definitively.
Edgar Wright tried to direct Ant-Man, and we saw how that worked out, which is that he left the Ant-Man project because he couldn't make it an Edgar Wright film correctly.
Oh, I actually liked Ant-Man.
Yeah.
At least
you can
the-
like or
Did he
not
leave
like
for-
superhero movies, but superhero movies are very much a Disney production or a Warner Brothers production, and the director is like not entirely important to that. So getting
Is that why-
getting interesting visionary directors doesn't mean you're gonna have an interesting movie.
Is that why they're switching up the directors for every Star Wars film? Because I always found that peculiar that they would change someone for a project
Pretty
because
sure they wanted to. I think they wanted to stick with J.J. Abrams, but he left.
Mhm.
And so once he's gone, you're like, well, shit. We thought he was going to make all these. But, like, Like fucking the new Fantastic Four that everyone hated was made by the guy that made Chronicle, like the found footage superhero movie where everyone finds things that give them powers, but like one of them has like an abusive relationship with their family, and so like they start morphing into like the villain of the story, and like there's all these like these found footage like drama scenes happening, and then like that 85% on Rotten Tomatoes, and then they made Fantastic Four, and it's 9% not Rotten Tomatoes, and they're like it's recut and it's reshot, and they brought in other people to change the movie afterwards, and like, was it the Ant-Man changed directors midway through its production? Now what's it called?
Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Movie.
Han Solo movie's been a nightmare. Then you have what's it called? Justice League is like changing hands over and over again and being written and reshot like a Frankenstein's monster at this point.
That's bad.
And there's a tragedy behind that explains some of it, because horrible shit happened in Zack Snyder's family, which is why he's not working on that movie anymore. And that's like really sad and horrible, but like it's another one on the long list of movies. It's like how Suicide Squad was made by someone and then handed off to other people, and like a trailer house recut it, and it's like there is no like artistic focus to any of this shit. There's no room in the universe that is superhero movies for like a Quentin Tarantino or an Edgar Wright. Like you're not gonna get like nothing's gonna feel like a Scott Pilgrim movie. And I don't mean like literally Scott Pilgrim exactly, but I mean like Scott Pilgrim felt like super specific and weird and special. And Marvel movies feel like, whether you like the stories and the characters or not, they all are shot the same, and they look the same, and they feel the same, and they're paced the same, and they're trying to create a continuity. They might as well be directed by the same person, and even though they're not. Mm-hmm. And the biggest exception, obviously, is Guardians of the Galaxy, which is directed by the guy that made Slither, which is basically like being directed by Sam Raimi, by the way. Like, that's like, he's one of those types of directors that makes some weird projects, and the fact that he had freedom led to that being the one that everyone talks about. Like, Suicide Squad was made by David Ayer, and he made, what was it? He made that movie in the tank called Fury. Like, that nightmare movie with Brad Pitt, and like, it was just like this hellish, grim, like textured movie, and it was super memorable, and it was hard to watch because it was just like a miserable thing happening. And then Suicide Squad was just like some kind of
miserable thing happening.
Yeah, it was a miserable experience for completely different reasons. Like, the directors that they pick up don't shine through. But yeah, I don't have great feelings about the Han Solo movie.
I would not be surprised if with Han Solo, with, you know, all these superhero movies, it's the same as like the Star Wars books. If you ever heard about like how the Star Wars books worked, originally with the Star Wars books, they more or less just said like, kind of, here's a loose guideline of like what we want. And this is before Episode 1 came out, so you got a lot of like kind of weird, cool books all over the place, where like Chewbacca dies and like a whole alien faction shows up out of nowhere.
Chewbacca get hit by a moon?
Yeah, they crash a whole moon and kill him.
Insane.
Which is, I mean, honestly, that's pretty surprisingly, epic death.
It's a really epic death for what's ultimately just like a mammal. Like, you can kill him with other things. He will die.
You could have crashed a ship into him.
I don't care if he's a Krogan. He'll still die.
Yeah. But so that was kind of in the wild, wild west of Star Wars novels. What ended up happening is Episode 1 came out, and Lucasfilm was kind of like, oh shit, like, we're going to be making a lot of money from this again. This isn't just one of Lucas's many forgotten...
We can't let the fan fiction people just play anymore.
Yeah, so all of a sudden, all the novels become much more serialized and focused.
Well, part of it was a lot of the novels were taking place directly before Episode 1 or in the time afterwards. Yeah. But I think people must have been prohibited from doing anything afterwards until the trilogy was finished.
It suddenly became super limited, and they couldn't write things. So you had whole like boardrooms filled with quality control, like executive quality control, which suddenly turns it from, you know, this is just going to be a Star Wars book to this is going to be the Star Wars book, and
comic
you
books
can't
went wild though for like the Clone Wars series and other things. I mean, I have a lot of those graphic novels. They created so many new characters, and some of them actually ended up in the movies later.
And things just get so messy when you have like an individual book or movie, and basically like there's somebody trying to write the thing and they have an idea of what the whole thing should be, and then someone's like basically like hand slapping them like no, it has to be this way and stuff like that every turn. Like you can still get good projects out of that, but it's such a different creation environment. Like, and that like so that leads to a situation where like a lot of these Marvel movies have been good, like really good. Like, there's no denying that they're making good movies, but they're gonna feel like one big homogenous thing at some point. And like,
it already does.
Already, I can't remember some of the movies individually, or like, good luck trying to place the timeline without a spreadsheet at some point.
I had actually forgotten that Captain America: Winter Soldier was a separate movie from Captain America: Civil War.
Yeah, which is crazy to me because when Winter Soldier came out, that was like everyone was flipping out because it was the best Marvel movie ever made. Like, Winter Soldier was like because that was Hydra happening, and it was really well done. And there's so many cool scenes, like the elevator scene and stuff going on, and like really cool action things. And I think it's like the last time we saw Samuel L. Jackson, basically, and like that was like
he hasn't been around lately.
Like, that was like a Mission Impossible movie. Like, it was really fun. And then almost immediately, like, it's just consumed by like the blue slime.
I think part of it is because
in.
they're trying to amp up for the Gauntlet,
the Infinity Gauntlet.
The Infinity Gauntlet. So they have to introduce
probably
Guardians.
Gonna kill like a bunch of these characters.
Ooh.
I'm pretty sure they're gonna kill some of these people off because their contracts aren't gonna go forever.
Yep.
Like, Iron Man was so long ago.
Oh, I know. Robert Downey Jr. said that he was pretty much done, but then they're like, "Hey, can you come on for Spider-Man?" He's like, "Oh, yeah, okay."
Like, we think about Logan and like how Hugh Jackman's played Wolverine forever, and he's got like the longest streak. Does he have the longest streak ever for playing a superhero in movies? I think.
I wouldn't doubt it.
I think so. Yeah.
But like, Iron Man's not too much later at this point. It's like it's later, but it's like Iron Man is already like almost a 10-year movie. And like,
it is interesting. It is interesting watching Hugh Jackman go from X-Men 1 to Logan, like the visual differences, even like makeup, like how much bulkier he got and like how much more he grew into the role. Robert Downey Jr. hasn't changed a bit.
He doesn't need to, though.
That man is, he is probably just going to be the next George Clooney, just weirdly immutable.
Robert Downey Jr. started looking better when he got older.
Yeah, well, part of it is he laid off on the drugs. That makes a huge difference.
His like eyes were almost weird when his face was completely smooth. Like, there was like he looked like slightly odd when you see him in like Natural Born Killers and stuff like that. Like, they were actually pretty close when they did the CG Iron Man at one point to go back and like try to show a young Robert Downey Jr. when he was like having a scene with his parents or something. And it's like, yeah, that's actually about how odd he looked when he didn't have any lines on his face.
And that's the thing. It's, I think that a lot of like actors can grow well into like older characters and older figures. It's just an unfortunate thing for actresses, though.
Yeah.
For Hugh Jackman, it's just funny because in the first movie he wasn't even particularly jacked. And then he gets distressingly jacked as the movies go on, and then half the movies are supposed to be prequels. The X-Men franchise needs to die. Not the franchise, but like the movie series. We have a trilogy of original movies. We have a trilogy of prequels, and now a trilogy of Wolverine movies. And yeah, you bet they're gonna probably get at least a trilogy of Deadpool movies. And it's like, that's 12 movies. That's 12 movies that exist in the X-Men continuity.
There are so many
X-Men. It's not a continuity anymore. It's a nightmare. You can't even tell what counts as being a part of the story anymore.
Which begs the question: when they do Black Panther, like, if Disney and Marvel ever get the rights to the X-Men back, are they actually going to have like the Storm Black Panther marriage thing?
They're not.
No?
Nope.
You can't even reconcile that stuff at some point because like you can't cross the universes, so you'd have to establish Storm from scratch in the Marvel universe at some point.
Yeah.
And then at that point, like,
Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch.
so that's a thing where what happens there is that those characters are
Had a dual contract.
yeah. Well, the issue is that they're not really like headline characters for like any of the Marvel comics in general.
Yeah, they were support characters.
Yeah, the support characters split between different stories. Like in one, they're Magneto's children, but in other ones, like they're actually prominent characters in completely non-X-Men stories. So basically, they broke out their lawyers and they argued about who gets to have which. And basically, they're like, yeah, both people can technically simultaneously have Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, but you can't call them mutants. You have to call them something else. So they call them like metahumans.
I believe it was mutates or something.
They call them metahumans, I think, or
metahumans, I think they call them.
Okay. Yeah, so specifically
you can't use the word mutant unless you have the X-Men license.
Yeah, specifically Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch were founding Avengers members.
Yeah.
And the Avengers license went very much to Disney, so eventually it was just determined that both characters are owned in the same, but you have to split the universe.
Wait. So
and
if
I
they
like
can't
Scarlet
call them...
Witch, but freaking Quicksilver is a waste.
He's garbage.
He's so good in the X-Men movies and such a waste of time when he shows up in Ultron.
Yeah, well, in Ultron,
he's
the
barely
guy
a character.
Yeah, he's barely a character.
It feels like they didn't even hire an actor to play him. Like they just hired some dude and gave him a wig and like you're to be Quicksilver for 10 minutes.
Yep. Your character's gonna die. Don't worry. You don't have a whole lot of lines to memorize. Just stand there and look relatively attractive. Thanks. Oh, by the way, you get shot and killed at the end.
Yeah. Meanwhile, they get the best Olsen sister to play Scarlet Witch.
I mean, the others are not exactly viable candidates at this point.
Yeah, but Elizabeth Olsen's actually in good movies. Because she's actually an actress, and she's in like a bunch of weird, fucked up drama movies, and like has a whole backlog of being in these like really, really compelling films, which is weird because no one knew she existed for a while.
I didn't.
Well,
I actually watched some Mary Kate and Ashley stuff growing up, but is she their younger sister?
Yes.
I first saw her in the movie Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene, which is like a really distressing cult movie. Like she escapes from an abusive cult, and then it's just like a bunch of really unsettling shit happens in a movie for a while. And I don't remember if I even liked the movie necessarily, but I just liked her a lot in it.
That's
like
Lindsay
she did a good
Lohan.
job.
Sorry. I always get...
he thinks that they're in the Parent Trap, but that's Lindsay Lohan.
So I remembered a detail and I couldn't remember. So I'd remembered a detail from when I was a kid where for the Parent Trap they had actually just had Lindsay Lohan twice and used like video editing to make it look like they were two different kids. I was under the impression that it was actually just the Olsen twins that had done it.
How old were they when that came out? Because I wonder why they didn't do it.
Yeah, so Mary Kate and Ashley are 3 years older than Elizabeth Olsen.
Okay.
This is why they got all fucked up first, and the parents are like, let's not repeat this one.
Yeah. Let's make sure the other one doesn't get into acting until she's old enough to probably not get into drugs, hopefully.
I can't even trace back how we got here, I'm gonna be honest.
Holy crap.
Well, we got here because we were
talking about Scarlet.
We're really bad about talking about Spider-Man.
Yeah, we are.
We're talking about directors, creative freedom, Raimi,
you can't
Spider-Man, Venom.
You can't talk about Spider-Man anymore without talking about the rest of the continuum, because at this point he's been firmly inserted into it.
It's so there's so many overlapping webs.
Yeah.
Webs.
So specifically for Homecoming, like you can watch it without watching Civil War.
It'll be very confusing for a few minutes.
Yeah, it's super confusing until you just kind of get used to the fact that for some reason Iron Man is suddenly Spider-Man's like surrogate dad.
Well, I just mean like the beginning of the movie is from Civil War.
Yeah,
it's his footage,
which is really
I thought that was
fun.
Yeah, here let's actually focus in on it. Let's not talk about the middle movies. Series because they're unmentionable. I only saw one of them. It was like this is bad.
You gave up with the first one too.
Well,
yeah. I saw the one with the lizard, and I'm like, eh.
I want to talk about that just a little bit, which is that like
okay,
like I liked Dopey Tobey Maguire, and like the Homecoming one is also like a different kind of like awkwardness that also works, but they hired like cool guy McBritish person from Social Network to play Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And he's like, look at my giant hair coif, and I'm really suave, and I get a lady in like 5 minutes into this movie and stuff like this. And she
then I go awkwardly skateboard for a while.
like nothing about him felt like any
Spider-Man.
version of Spider-Man,
Yeah.
really. And it also has the worst. It has what I like. People point out the dancing scene, but the first Amazing Spider-Man has what is for me the worst scene I've ever seen in a Spider-Man film.
Which
the
was
cranes.
Yeah, the cranes. Because like,
the cranes.
so like, what happened for those who don't know is that when Spider-Man first came out, they had filmed it already mostly, and like they set up like they are setting up like, oh, it's New York, so like, you know, New York, and like, look, it's set in this location. I know we'll have a promo trailer that takes that where Spider-Man captures a helicopter and a giant web between the Twin Towers, which got really awkward very abruptly right before the movie came out because of what happened to the Twin Towers. So they changed things, and they're like, well, we need to this is a time to come together, because like we're releasing a movie that takes place in New York shortly after a disaster happens in New York. So they add like the "You Go Spider-Man" of like all the New Yorkers coming together to like during that one scene during the first movie, and like having like a moment where the community itself kind of also saves Spider-Man in a moment, and having like it reinforces the whole friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and the whole part where like it's supposed to be about community during a timing when being about community especially mattered in the New York area. So it's like a really like specific of its time sort of movie release. And I think it was the second movie had the train, which was almost like that was also fantastic because he saves an entire train of people and he's just defeated at that point. And they carry him through the group, and his mask isn't on, and they just put his mask back on, and no one's gonna reveal who he is. And it's like it's New York looking after one of their own, and that's like really cool. And it's like you don't like have to like figure out the logistics of the scene, because like it's just really basic. They're just gonna they're just gonna take care of him and not reveal who he is because they're looking after one of their own. In the Amazing Spider-Man, they try to do the exact same thing again, which, first of all, why are you shamelessly ripping off somebody else's take on Spider-Man like this? Because that's when you get like the Ghost in the Shell problem, where it's like, wow, you're just like ripping scenes from other people's movies without any of the proper build-up and stuff. But it's also stupid.
People just can't.
People aren't creative. It sucks. But
Yep.
But in Amazing Spider-Man, he needs to go in a particular direction. It's during the climax, and he's kind of beat up and something like that. And he's got to beat. God, was it Lizard Man? I don't even remember who the villain of that movie was
It
anymore.
was Lizard.
It was
That
the
movie's
lizard.
so forgettable, except for the scene being stupid. But he needs to go in a particular direction, so there happens to be a zigzag of particular cranes in the middle of the
not
night,
to mention there was a bomb.
where there's workers on all of those cranes, and like, we're gonna help Spider-Man. I don't know how we know he needs help, or how we're all communicating so abruptly, but they all perfectly, all these cranes that are somehow on tops of buildings perfectly along the entire path that Spider-Man needs to take, all rotate outward to put their arms out over the open street so that he can swing off, so he can use his webs to like swing off of all of their arms and stuff like that to get there. And I'm like, first of all, how were all those cranes on those exact buildings? Because that's insane. How did everyone know to do this?
Wasn't it night too?
It was nighttime.
It was like the middle of the
Like,
night.
how is this scene even happening? And also, why does Spider-Man need cranes? He has like the webs stick to like anything. So like,
Yeah,
the
we've
scene
already
made-
established that he doesn't need full buildings to swing off of.
the scene made almost no sense on any level, and was like, but also had that really bad stink of just like, we're just going to use another director's ideas in our movie, like shamelessly, without understanding why it was there. And like, it's so much up with many of those movies that happen, where like we're going to rip scenes from a thing and not understand why the scenes happened or what they meant at the time, and we're just trying to mimic things that have been successful before without any of the soul. And it's like, that scene was when I knew that universe was doomed. And so I didn't even bother watching the second one, and I guess no one else did either, because
Nope.
it bombed
I never watched
hard.
it. I just didn't like Garfield as Peter Parker, and the delivery with him and the lizard and everything else.
Sounds really weird when you don't say Andrew Garfield. I didn't like
Cat.
Garfield as
Garfield?
Peter Parker. I'm like, hang on a minute, calibrating.
Just imagining Garfield the cat.
So
It's
I
also
will
really
admit-
gross to like It also feels
Or
really gross
President
when
Garfield.
you're cynically corporately repackaging post 9/11 patriotism to sell your 2013 movie, and I'm like, this is disgusting.
I will admit the crane scene actually got me with the emotional connection, and then afterwards I was like, God damn it.
God damn it.
When I had a moment to think about it, I'm like, son of a bitch.
I mean, you
That was,
cheer
the
them on, woohoo, go normal
honestly,
people.
I think
You're
it's actually the
helping Spider-Man.
music. I will say, I believe the Garfield Spider-Man. What was the tagline for those? Because I don't remember.
Amazing.
Okay, yeah, the Amazing Spider-Man ones. That I think they had a really good soundtrack or something. Because I remember the songs more than I actually remember the game, the movies themselves. Because the movies, the plots were bleh. But that moment they had that classic inspiring music, and it's all right, I'm invested. And then afterwards, it's just oh, that was dumb. Oh well.
In any case, Spider-Man has had a slump for a little while.
Well, yeah, for a long while. You guys have no idea how many cartoons they've had in the meantime, probably.
Oh, yeah.
I actually watched a YouTube video the other day.
There's a 3D one and other things.
Yeah, there was who's the actor that's currently in... He was in How I Met Your Mother. Neil Patrick Harris. There we go. Neil Patrick Harris was Spider-Man for a little bit in the 3D animated one, which I watched a clip of. Apparently 2003.
Works.
It looked atrocious. He was actually a decent voice actor, but the plots were stupid and the animation was worse.
I mean, there's no shortage of superhero voice actors out there.
Yep.
If you're gonna make your animated shows.
The Iron Man animated movies were pretty bad.
Yeah, they were atrocious. But so I watched a 10-minute video on each one of them, and there's been 30 different cartoons in the past 20 years, and I'm like, really? I thought they stopped with the one in the 90s, and then just kind of rebooted it.
I knew they went past the 90s one because there was one where he went to the future.
Yeah,
and he had the techno
that was actually a follow-up, sort of, to the one.
Yeah, but it was a new show, and in the equivalent of Batman Beyond, being the same animators and everything and same writers, I want to say, but it was a new show.
Even the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles had a future show too.
By the way, Batman Beyond was really cool.
Batman Beyond was amazing.
Beyond.
When do we get? Really when does Terry get a movie?
I don't know. I want one because
that was a weird future where people were augmenting their bodies with animal parts and stuff. That was a crazy setting to add to the already weirdness that was Gotham.
I mean, it also helped to explain where a lot of the villains came from.
Yeah.
Because
suddenly you didn't have to explain away Killer Croc as much because it actually had an in-universe explanation in the setting that went beyond that one character.
I was so happy when Arkham City had a Batman Beyond skin that you could play as. Because one, you didn't have to deal with the giant swooshy cape, which actually gets really in the way of gameplay.
But what about the mouth? That doesn't make sense.
I don't care.
It's hard to make costumes for that particular suit.
I could care less about how he has a mouth with a weird cyber suit.
Well, they've sort of been...
Yeah, I'm looking up the Batman Beyond costume, and it's baffling for Arkham Knight.
Yeah, it looks weird.
He looks like Mr. Freeze put Batman ears grafted onto his helmet, and then just painted a bat on the front. He actually almost looks like some of the I don't quite have my full costume yet versions of Daredevil. Yeah, with the weird grimace forehead.
I just liked it because it's they remember Batman Beyond exists.
Yeah, but didn't keep any of the parts about how Batman Beyond looked necessarily.
It was good. Oh yeah, no, they just had the Bruce model, so they're okay.
Batman Beyond was lankier and he was more acrobatic.
When they made the Arkham Knight thing, all they did was take the black, he's black with a red bat on the chest, and then they kept nothing else from the costume.
It actually looks really silly in the in-game cutscenes.
Yeah,
but
most of the custom ones do.
Yeah, but so Homecoming, we're 53 minutes into this.
We're going off on various
barely
heroes.
This is quickly just turning into it. This is quickly turning into a real podcast.
Yeah, well. Might just have to be one.
Superhero cast.
But so Homecoming. So it starts kind of with this weird vlog version of Civil War, just snippets of it, which I actually found incredibly endearing because it kind of it set up the character really well. I mean,
might even pave
Civil
the
War
way
set
for
it up
his
perfectly.
photography career.
I hope he was.
They're probably not going to do that because now he's involved with Stark and everything.
Like, he was catering to us as YouTubers.
Yeah, it's true. I actually legitimately hope they don't even touch on his photography career, apart from like maybe a little bit here and there, because like that was such a bad arc for him, because you get mired in it. There's no dynamism to taking photos occasionally of Spider-Man.
Of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's no
part of what
there's no real direction to go with it as far as a job goes. If anything, they could just have a twist of that every now and then Spider-Man will intentionally make a video to release publicly for, you know, like PR purposes or like awareness purposes related to what's going on, because
I'd actually be way
everyone
more
has
interested.
cameras now all the time.
Yeah, I'd be way more interested if he actually kept doing the vlog thing as kind of like a side thing that you see every once in a while.
Yeah.
And because
you still have Spider-Man holding
Spider-Man,
a camera, just without the dumb explanation that doesn't fit this new setting.
Well, they say Spider-Man on YouTube, so like I almost would be totally down with the idea of him being like kind of a covert YouTuber for Spider-Man videos and stuff like that.
I thought it was more like people were taking videos of him and then like posting them online.
I mean, it totally could be that, but the idea of like it would fit really well in terms of
fighting crime.
Well, I think it would just fit well into like how Spider-Man is just set up.
I mean, I suppose with YouTubers and stuff, I mean, there are so many YouTube channels dedicated to journalism. I mean, it is.
So sort of it's something. I don't know if they're going to keep with it, but I'd rather
they should go full bore fucking into it. Go even further into YouTube. Next movie has like Philip DeFranco's weekly take on the Spider-Man video, and like straight up like too real elements of being on YouTube.
I always get weirded out when they
Spider-Man drama.
I always get weirded out in movies where they hire like Wolf Blitzer to do like an announcement based on like whatever's happening in the movie. I'm like, just make up your own like dude.
Or you have Bill O'Reilly or Jon Stewart or what's the really clean cut guy with the white hair that shows up a lot actually.
Oh yeah, it starts with an A, I think.
Anderson Cooper.
Anderson Cooper
shows up a lot in movies usually. What? Do some of these people know that they're being hired to do like a parody of themselves or a joke at their own expense sometimes?
I'm fairly certain they do. I mean, obviously, like Colbert, Jon Stewart, and probably Anderson Cooper are smart enough for that.
When Anderson Cooper and Jon Stewart and stuff go on, they're just there to literally report the news usually, and it's literally like they're just saying the headline and then it cuts away and that's it. But when they have like certain like right-wing talk show type people show up, like they literally play a parody of themselves based on how the script is written, and I'm like, I don't know if do they know, and are they cool with that, or did they get like bamboozled, or like when there's been weird instances of that over the years. It's strange.
This is one thing I've always wondered if it will happen or if it ever has happened. But you know how there are numerous films where the president shows up, and they've had like just the mysterious Mr. President, you have someone on the line for you. And you just see like a hand reach out.
White dude or something.
Well, it's just like a hand that reaches out. And I remember in some movies, didn't they actually have someone impersonate the Bush accent or something? Like sometimes they try to include
sometimes you impersonate them. Sometimes they're a silhouette. Sometimes they're just a hand or someone talking to like the Oval Office. Sometimes you just cast some random oldish dude that looks kind of nice in a suit, like he just seems clean and presidential, and you just call him the president.
Has there ever been like a real president that has allowed themselves to have a cameo in a film?
I don't know.
Can you? I wonder.
Yeah, I'm not actually sure about that.
People would accuse you of like misusing your time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure it would be a PR nightmare. Also, like
you also can't film in the Oval Office.
Yeah.
Right.
There are like 100 fake Oval Offices around the country. Yeah, I
wonder if they sell misleading replicas or something.
We have a lot of presidents that have been in movies before and after being president.
Like Reagan.
Yeah, and Trump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really weird watching him in like WrestleMania videos and you're like, this is our president. This is a weird thing to reconcile sometimes. Like,
I remember watching The Apprentice with my family because they love the reality television shows.
And I'm in California, so I have an interesting experience with having strange people controlling the local area that I'm used to watching in action movies.
You mean like Schwarzenegger?
Yeah. He was our governor. I'm like, I don't understand. I can't reconcile this.
I've actually lived in 2 states. Specifically, I believe this is the case. 2 states governed by previous Predator actors.
Didn't Jesse Ventura?
Yeah, Jesse Ventura and Arnold Schwarzenegger both became governors of different states. Which, I mean, for all intents and purposes, I heard they were actually decent at it, so I don't know. I think...
It makes me wonder how many more celebrities will become the president, or if presidents will be celebrities. Well, actually,
personally, I hope we talk more about Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
Shit.
I'm just wondering if there ever will be a president to show up in a superhero movie.
I hope not. I think that would be a political nightmare.
I somehow went through 8 years of Schwarzenegger being governor without ever fully sinking in that he was in fact governor.
Yeah.
I never accepted it. Not even for political reasons, it just didn't feel real. It felt like Terry Crews is the president in Idiocracy, like that, like kind of stuff. It didn't feel real.
Point,
I forgot that was Terry Crews.
Are people really aware of like how their mayors or their governors or whatever really work within their states? I don't ever remember them doing much aside from giving speeches on TV.
You generally don't hear about a governor unless they're doing something bad. So like specifically in Kansas, our governor is kind of unpopular because his financial ideas have backfired pretty bad. And I specifically heard about Romney a lot in post because he was running for president, but he had been governor of Massachusetts like shortly before. So it's just like, okay, these are like kind of things to note. And I actually had to like read up on him.
It's so weird thinking that I'm in Kansas. I've been a New Yorker all my life.
I guess this is not a Spider-Man Spoilercast. This is just a podcast.
Oh, yeah, but everyone, Spider-Man is a source of New York pride.
I literally don't know what to call this. Like, we have spent so little time talking about Spider-Man that, I'm like, do I call this a normal episode and just say Spider-Man spoilers? But then it won't be in the playlist for the Spoilercast.
I was going to say, I think the problem with Homecoming is you almost can't talk about it without talking about the context of it.
It's too tied into so many things that, like... It's part of the larger universe thing. It's part of the licensing problem. It has a multiple director issue, multiple failed trilogies thing going on. It has multiple incarnations to discuss about your background with Spider-Man.
Can I finish my thing before you start rubbing me so you can get your point in, Shell?
I was just saying that we could find him... If we ask specific...
And then she talks anyway!
She really doesn't care what I have to say half the time.
Like, you're like, can I please finish saying the thing? You're like, I'm going to talk anyway. You literally responded by just talking anyway.
So, with Spider-Man, like you said, it's interconnected to those things, but also, like, very specifically, Spider-Man Homecoming is, like, I would say an unequivocally good movie. Like, there's nothing particularly truly amazing about it, but it's, like, actually enjoyable and decent and whatnot.
I just want to point out how often we get comments that are like, I feel bad about how often Shell gets talked over, and then remind them this is like a reminder.
I live with her. I know how this works.
Like, this is why.
Well, the thing is, I act all remorseful and sad afterwards.
You play the victim in a weird, like, sarcastic... you're playing, like, what are you doing? You're like in people's heads and manipulating them, and it's working. Finish your thought.
She's cute. I'm sorry. She's adorable. It's like feeling bad for a puppy that's like fell over.
People fall for it a lot.
It did it to itself, but you still can't help but feel bad for it.
Now you guys are being mean.
A little bit. You interrupted me. Vengeance. So. I think the main point I'm trying to make before I let Shell talk is Spider-Man Homecoming is an unequivocally good movie, and like kind of no matter what you talk about like within it kind of doesn't matter in terms of the overall connotations of like they actually managed to make a Spider-Man movie that will fit in a chronology that doesn't suck. And I think that's an incredibly positive thing. So, like, yeah, we can talk about The Vulture. We can talk about, like, this Spider-Man. But it's just like, oh, no, it was actually, like, a decent movie. And it's kind of better to talk about why it being a good movie is important.
It is a victory of sorts for the character, and like,
yeah.
If you liked the first 2 Sam Raimi movies, and most people didn't like the third one, like, at this point, you have to accept, like, there's a lot of people, at least, opinions are all over the place, but if you're lining up the same way I am, then it's like, there's been more bad movies in the middle than the good ones at the beginning since there was last a good one. Like, there was 2 good ones, then 3 bad ones in a row. Like, it's been so long since a decent Spider-Man movie came out. It's been rough, and they actually did it. They did a good job, surprisingly, using Civil War as like a Spider-Man Homecoming trailer, basically.
Yeah,
like in a way that didn't work with Wonder Woman. Like, Wonder Woman just felt like a weird, awkward inclusion in Batman vs Superman, and
yeah, she was just sort of shoved in there, and yeah.
But like Spider-Man, you saw Spider-Man in Civil War, and like, I'm gonna see that Spider-Man movie now. Like, I'm gonna go see that movie.
Honestly, he was my favorite part of Civil War because he slotted in really well. He was just this like kid that Iron Man was like, hey, I need you to specifically like just delay them. I don't need you to fight. I don't need you to hurt anybody. Just steal a shield and buy me as much time as you can possibly get. And ultimately, like, it failed, but it was super endearing seeing this kid brought on, specifically so, like, Captain America couldn't just go full out.
And it even largely made sense why it was there, because, like, they're just grabbing, the 2 sides were just scaling up and grabbing more people, basically. It's like, we got Ant-Man. It's like, well, we got Spider-Man. It's like, who are either of these people? It's like, well, we're reaching at this point because the main squad is already accounted for, and we're trying to overpower the other group. And so they're both sides had trump cards, basically, where they're throwing out cards like that. Ant-Man and Spider-Man were on opposite sides, right?
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
That's one of the problems with Civil War being a single movie, is that it's hard to remember what the breakdown of sides was for certain characters.
Yes. Well, especially because a lot of the characters weren't even opposed. Like, even Hawkeye kind of admitted in the middle of it, it's like, I mean, I'm opposed to you, but like, this is mostly just me helping out because I ideologically agree with him more than you, but I'm like still your friend.
Now, did Panther start off for Iron Man's side, but then
it gets complicated.
Well, so specifically, Black Panther thought that Winter Soldier had killed his father.
Yeah.
And so when he finally finds out that he's been duped, he's super apologetic, and he realizes that Captain America's, and
helps store him away.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where,
I'm
like,
actually really
you'd be better at... The story would work better if you could slowly introduce every single character and their motivations and what side they're on and why and so on over the course of, like, multiple movies or a television series or, say, comic books, for example, where everyone's a main character of their own comic and has their own established character that you understand at that point, as opposed to, like, just throwing Spider-Man and Black Panther and other people just into the mix with Vision and so on. You're like, I don't know who anyone is anymore. But
because I think they made
they were at least self-aware enough to be like we're still friends, right? When, like, Black Widow and Hawkeye are fighting, it's like that. It's like, and then just, like, kicks his ass.
Yeah, I thought that was super endearing. I actually also thought it was really nice that specifically in Civil War, Spider-Man arguably was the one that get hurt the most, because I thought that was kind of a nice turning point for a lot of characters where it's just like, oh shit, this is getting real, and the unassociated side character is the one that's
Spider-Man definitely did not get hurt the most.
During that, like, fight between both groups, he got hit real hard.
It is unequivocally, it is, like, the whole point of the scene is that the big bad wound that happens is War Machine.
Oh.
He gets crippled.
But that was beforehand. That was, like, way
that was
beforehand.
how the fight ends. The fight ends with War Machine being crippled, and there was like, oh, we've made a mistake. And that's, like, what stops the fight.
Yeah,
that's, like,
I had forgotten about that because... Well, so
you
part
forgot
of it
about
is
it because it's War Machine and he doesn't matter.
Because wasn't it? Was it Ant-Man had become Mini, went on War Machine's armor, was going to sabotage it?
Well, he did sabotage it, and then he crashed in a field elsewhere, which is why I'm having trouble with it.
But didn't Iron Man also have a missile flying at him, and that missile hit him?
Because, like, War Machine's just the character from the not as good Iron Man movie.
Yeah,
it's like that. The Don Cheadle movie was Iron Man 2, basically, and that was a while ago now too, so people have, like, largely forgotten about that. And that was awkward too because they recast him. It's like, that's not the black guy that was in the last movie.
I had forgotten.
They're just hoping we won't remember black people or something. Like they just replaced him with a different one and didn't mention it. Wasn't it Cuba Gooding Jr. or something?
Maybe. To be fair, prior he wasn't like a really remarkable character, so they could kind of get away with it.
Yeah. They just introduced him briefly. It's like how I think it's the president or some other character has been replaced like 7. No, it's if you look up the credit for Tony Stark's father, then he's played by like 4 different actors in the Marvel universe already between the show and different flashbacks across the movies because they just change him every time.
Yeah, because
like, oops.
I almost kind of want them to be like a thing where like Tony Stark's super unreliable memory due to
doesn't even remember what
all
his
the drinking and whatnot. Yeah, that I actually really
he has a mustache.
Want them
That's
to
all
keep
he needs to know.
Yeah, he's got a mustache and he's vaguely authoritarian, and Tony Stark kind of hates him. And I want them.
It was
I want
Terrence
that to actually
Howard. God damn it!
Be a detail.
Oh yeah, I remember that
damn
name.
It!
What did you screw up?
Like,
Terrence
it's like, what, I
Howard.
think we're not going to notice different black people? And it's like, then I named the wrong black person.
Oops.
It was Terrence Howard. I had the right face in my mind, though. I just mixed up names. That was that was not good.
I wouldn't feel too guilty about that because they, like the movies themselves, haven't given the guy enough screen time to like solidify him as a character, much less as the actor related to the character. Like, it's hard to
remember him being
separate.
replaced better than I remember him being in the first movie.
Yeah.
I just remember being like, that's Don Cheadle. He looks really, really, really different. Like, Don Cheadle's really recognizable.
I really like the fact that, like, what they've done with the Falcon, because he was such a no-name, like, he was the equivalent of, like, the hero version of the Spider-Man's Vulture, and he was, like, such a weird no-name character in the comics, and now he's actually kind of like a mainline Avenger, and I'm like, yeah, I like this guy, and
he flies a bit.
Actually, yeah, he flies, but, like, I guess he's kind of, like,
and he's
flying
another
version of Hawkeye.
He's also another character that came from Captain America Winter Soldier.
Yes.
That was actually an important movie for the series, but like for a lot of people it's like it just blended into Civil War.
Oh,
it's like
it absolutely did.
They're 2 separate discrete movies that are both like 2.5 hours long.
So the question that I was like going to pose a long time ago.
Okay.
So what was your favorite side character? Or that aside from like Spider-Man himself being the main protagonist, what was your favorite like sort of sidekick character in this new movie, and what were your favorite scenes?
In Spider-Man
So
Civil
many
War,
sidekick
like
characters are there to pick from?
Okay.
Well, his good friends, from like the competition, his aunt, the villains.
The ant's in the movie for like 1 minute.
Yeah. I absolutely hated the like nerdy side character friend just because I know kids like that. I grew up with kids like that. And I had flashbacks to them being equally annoying and useless in times of like actual crisis, and I'm like, no.
This got mean.
Sorry. I had a friend, he was super good natured, wonderful kid, but he did not know at all like when his filter should stop. So like a guy broke his leg. And he just stands around cracking jokes and is like uncomfortably close to the people that are actively trying to like, get the guy off of his broken leg. And it's just like, move.
I don't think that's a fair comparison to Spider-Man Homecoming.
It's the same personality, which is why I didn't like him. Like the same kind of like mannerisms and whatnot.
He's the kind of good influence that will keep Peter Parker and him inside their apartment making the Death Star in Lego form. Come on.
He's not going to be like oblivious to threats that he actually understands or anything like that. He is just like hype and teenager.
I guess I specifically remember the like.
Also, he just found out that his best friend was the hero on YouTube. Like, yeah, come on.
No, it's true. I guess I'm specifically thinking of the trope where like Spider-Man's like sneaking up and then his phone starts ringing. Yeah. To be fair, to some degree, that's Peter's fault for having that. But yeah, also
I haven't had a ringtone on my phone for like 15 years.
I actually ran into something last week. I have my phone completely on silent. But apparently, if I've got my music player open, somebody calls me.
Oh,
your music plays,
and then the call goes through, and then stops, or I just don't pick up. Then the music starts playing because it's like, oh, it's time to resume. So like we were woken up the other morning because his some spam caller's like, your power bill, and I'm like, fucking, I don't live in Massachusetts anymore. My Massachusetts power bill is non-existent.
Also, you never had
Thank
one
you.
because your
Also
parents
that.
always paid it.
Also that. Thanks, Mom.
Just
Yeah.
the detail that didn't need to be added. Geez, we're talking about sidekick. I don't know. I can't answer your question. I have no idea what other sidekick you'd be talking about besides the one sidekick.
Well, I thought that it was interesting that they introduced... Well, first off, I was surprised that there was a Michelle character in the movie. And, you know, she was sort of that, like, sort of quiet, punkish girl who also drew. She would, like, draw
Are you referring
people
to
in
yourself
detention.
in the third person when you say Michelle person?
No.
Or there's a character named
there's a
Michelle?
Michelle
The curly-haired
Michelle.
girl that drew him during detention, who,
At the very end of
time,
the movie,
is actually
MJ.
Is actually Mary
Yeah.
Jane.
Yeah. I thought that was nice. I thought that was
Well,
a nice handling.
Not Mary Jane. The creators have been like, no, she's not Mary Jane, but she's still an MJ because she's a Michelle Jones.
Well,
but
they can try and obscure it all they want. She is going to be the
They're still
analog
going to
for
call her MJ.
Yeah, she is going to be the analog for Mary Jane.
Yeah.
MJ.
But a cool
I mean, it's one
artist-
solution if you don't want to
Mary
rename
Jane.
it, if you don't want to quote unquote recast a character, but you still want to have Spider-Man get in a relationship with somebody that they call MJ, I guess.
Yeah. I also kind of appreciated the fact that she didn't seem like helpless or just kind of ditzy. They went with the kind of like all too aware.
She nonchalantly
kind of
wins them
cynical
the
character.
competition.
Yeah.
She was mostly just barely in the movie.
Yeah, she really wasn't, which is kind of unfortunate, but like, I don't know. I guess I appreciated it better than just having the classic love interest being, you know, the redhead
They had a couple scenes
model chick.
with the detention, with the like, didn't like Spider-Man land next to her or something weird? And he was like, "Oh, sorry, what's going on up there?" Like, kind of thing. That was interesting for the Washington Monument.
She told them where they were.
Other things.
Also appreciated that the love interest for Homecoming specifically was also kind of an atypical character. The handling of her being the
They didn't go with
villain's
the Gwen
daughter
Stacy.
Was
yeah.
great.
Yeah, they didn't go with the Gwen Stacy.
Yeah, it was great. The reveal for that was amazing.
The villain's
Shell
great too.
Shell thought that the Vulture had actually kidnapped the whole family, and I was just like, no, I saw this coming from the very beginning. He's the dad, and it's amazing.
Well, as soon as he's like, "Hey, come in, Peter," kind of thing, I was like, "Uh-oh, is this..." No, it isn't a trap. He's just like cutting food at the cutting board and
It's
everything.
not a trap because he doesn't know who he is.
Right.
The only
right.
person having a revelation when that door opens is Peter Parker. Nobody else has any realizations until later about what's going on.
That was one of my favorite parts of the movie.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
And the villain himself is great because he's just some like blue collar worker that is like
Got
just
screwed
being
over.
screwed over completely. So he's like, well, I see an opportunity, and you know, just things kind of escalated naturally, and you have. And like you can see like you can fill in the gaps about how he got where he is because he didn't just decide to be evil and do horrible things. He decided to do one shady thing because he was getting screwed over by other people, and it was something that wasn't going to hurt anybody in the moment because it was literally just keeping something he already had, and it didn't belong to anyone in the first place because it was space junk. And so he's like, I'm just going to secretly hold on to this and then escalate from there a little bit, but then he keeps doing little tiny escalations where like instead of an all or nothing question of like, am I willing to be the Vulture like up front, it's more like, no, am I willing to take this next step and this next step, and then eventually 10 years later you can see how he would be what he is.
Yeah. And I thought that was really well handled because he was...
Was it 10 years later?
Yeah. It was,
Oh.
Well, it wasn't 10 years later. It was like multiple years, though.
It said 8 or 10 or something like that. It was
like
long
the
enough
time-
that it was like half of the lifespan of this character playing Spider-Man. Is
Yeah.
how long he's been the Vulture now.
And you see, like, of course he'd want to be able to maintain his, like, family's lifestyle and stuff. That was a really nice house. I don't know what kind of area of New York City that would have been in.
Because yeah, they were maintaining the the Avengers movie happened 5 years ago now, and I think
Yeah.
more time has passed in universe than in real life actually.
Which is cool, because I like the idea that time is passing. Unfortunately, eventually, they're going to have to address...
die.
Yeah, Iron Man getting old.
They don't have to worry about Thor. They could potentially say, oh, the Hulk is radioactive and maybe not going to get too old.
Well, no, he's talking about how the actors are going to age.
Yeah, eventually...
The actors will eventually age.
You get the Hugh Jackman problem where they decide to later do prequels, and then in the prequels, he looks older than in the sequels later.
No, I was just trying to address the whole time passing faster in universe than outside of it.
No. It's just more like that they have a concise universe planned. Like, that's... Yeah. Like, on one hand, it's crushing and horrible to look at the nightmare spreadsheet of all the future movies that are already, like, pre-planned for decades for Marvel movies, and it's just, like, it's scary.
Also, what happens if someone dies?
Machine operated the whole thing? They'd probably have to recast them unless it's too important of a character.
Well, chances are they'll either recast him if it's someone really important like Captain America, or 3D model them and then have them die gracefully somehow.
I was gonna say the opposite. You recast them if they're not as important, but if they're too important, you have to, because of how
you have to kill them off.
Because of how actor driven the universe is with Robert Downey Jr. and stuff. Like if he died, you can't recast.
No, you can't continue with Iron Man.
You have to come up with a reason why Iron Man's gone now, or do a standalone CG scene, which is easy because he's in an Iron Man suit. But you'd have to kill the character at that point.
Haven't they thrown around the idea of, I know that in some iterations, like the Ant-Man has had, 3 or 4 different people donning the suit? I mean, it's possible that...
you can't do that with Iron Man.
Iron Man doesn't have a replacement, though.
No.
Well, he does. It's Bucky Barnes. For quite a while, Bucky Barnes was actually Captain America. After Captain America got shot at the end of Civil War, but instead he was actually...
I said Iron Man.
Well, I was going to say, sorry, Captain America had like a replacement and whatever. Okay.
But does Iron Man have a replacement?
It's like how Batman
really.
knew not to recast the Joker when Heath Ledger died. Like, you just have to just move on. Like, you can't try to replace that character with a different actor at that point, because the actor was the reason why people cared about that character.
I think part of it is also, like, if the role wasn't filled well, you can kind of get away with it. Like, with all the Spider-Mans, you can keep recasting Spider-Man for ages, but now that he has so firmly ensconced himself in the chronology in the series, if the actor whose name I have no idea who the current actor is, because names are stupid.
It's more like you can replace, like, Glider Man, or Vision, or or War Machine, or Scarlet Witch, or something. Like, you can get away with recasting the characters that were never super important, even in the movies they were in. But if it's if it's the actor that's the reason people watch the movie, then you're screwed.
Yes.
Yeah, so going into this one, because I'd never seen the Spider-Man actor in anything else,
it helped.
It did help, like, establish them as sort of like the new version of the character.
At the same time, I'd seen Robert Downey Jr. in quite a number of things, and I could very easily just accept him as Iron Man. I didn't need to see him in things beforehand.
I'd only ever seen him in Tropic Thunder, and that was after
he was amazing in Tropic Thunder.
But I hadn't really been exposed to any Robert Downey Jr. films.
This actor has not been in much.
The Spider-Man actor?
Yeah, he's been in a couple movies before. Notably, he's in a movie that I bring up every now and then because I found it to be really cool. There's a movie called Locke that stars Tom Hardy. I've mentioned it before. I think it's the one where he literally is just sitting in a car driving on the freeway talking on the phone for the entire movie.
Oh.
So one of the voices on the phone is the guy that goes on to play Spider-Man. And that was in 2014. Aside from that, he's been in 4 things, and one of them's the UK dub of something. So it's wow, he was a dub artist for something. It's the movie Arrietty, Secret World of Arrietty.
Arrietty?
Yeah, he played Show in the UK dub.
Okay.
So,
wait, so there's an American dub and a UK dub? I thought.
Yeah.
Apparently, yeah. Because everything we ever get in English never has any sort of European accents ever, really.
Except for Xenoblade Chronicles, which was amazing.
Xenoblade Chronicles
this dude's set, though, because you look at his IMDb, you look at his wiki, and it starts with Captain America: Civil War, and that's actually in the upper third of his listed movies already because of how many movies he's in now. because he's in Captain America: Civil War, Spider-Man: Homecoming, Infinity War, the unnamed Avengers film that is no longer called Infinity War, I think. But also he's in like 5 other movies from 2016 to 2019 already, like already scheduled or done and stuff. So
yeah, I mean
you get sucked into Marvel and you're kind of set just in terms of like those contracts.
Yeah, so he'll be
Arrietty was a Ghibli
more.
film,
which is good.
We'll be seeing him for a while now. But yeah, I love the Vulture. I love that he's like this grounded character where I could see how he got where he got and stuff, even if I don't agree with, obviously, with things going on in the character, being the villain and whatnot. And I like that he's just a bank robber with the jetpack, basically, as far, like, which is what that's what Spider-Man villains should be. Like, this one uses mind tricks on people, and this one is mad at this one's terrorizing things because he's testing out a new weapon because he wants to get revenge on this guy that screwed him out of like a freaking research grant or something. Like that's how petty a lot of the Spider-Man villains are.
Yeah, and the interesting thing for me too was I grew up watching the original Batman, and Michael Keaton was Batman, and then he was Birdman, and now he's the Vulture.
Yeah. There's also fun nods with the with Shocker and Vulture having costumes that are reminiscent of their actual costumes, because Vulture had the fur like poof around his neck and everything, and Shocker was wearing clothes that looked like if somebody was like, I want to have, like, he looked like a discount cosplay of the Shocker character, because the Shocker character is that weird yellow and gold fishnet nightmare creature. Like, he looks bizarre, and but
he has
if you look
a
at
huge mask with lightning bolts coming off of it.
Yeah, but you look at Shocker in Homecoming, and it's like, oh, they got a lot of it in there actually.
Yeah.
I'm trying to bring up an image for it. It was like a weird, like, discount Tom Hardy. Then it was really distracting how much I thought he was maybe Tom Hardy, but he wasn't, which is really confusing. But he's wearing a brown vest, which is where the Shocker brown part would be, and then his no, I think it's just a jacket basically, but it was those jackets that have like it's those jackets you see everywhere where it has the zigzag sewing on the sleeves specifically that have like the padding diamonds everywhere, and that part was the gold part. So it's like, oh, he has like that's the same visual pattern as the fishnet weirdness that is the Shocker's visual design. I'm like, oh, look, they just straight up put the Shocker in this movie, and for a little bit.
Part of it with the costume design that they do in the new films is, if you've noticed, everything's become darker, more desaturated and stuff. Part of it's the aesthetic that they use nowadays. Another part is because if you had all those gaudy colors from the comic books, it would just...
I think that's actually kind of an interesting point, is a lot of the villains recently, I guess, for the Marvel movies, if they're not one of the supernatural people, if they're like a regular person from Earth, it almost feels like most of them are actually regular dudes, which is a weird contrast, because, like, you know, the Vulture, he had space tech, but he was just a dude that, like, repurposed it. He was on a construction crew.
The most high-tech thing he had were the wings and the helmet.
Yeah, but, like, even then, they looked
there was the murder gun.
Yeah, there was the murder gun.
I mean, for, like, costume elements.
But, like, visually and aesthetically, he looked much closer to Earth tech than, say, Spider-Man's tights. And I'm assuming this is a very, like, intentional thing. But, like, you know, Loki was bright and colorful and whatever, whereas the villain from Civil War, that dude that was on, like, a mission of vengeance, he was just a guy in, like, totally regular clothes for the most part.
What guy?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it. He was very unmemorable. But...
that was actually the point, too. Like, some people get mad about that in Civil War, about how, like, the villain was a nobody and stuff like that, and Andrew gets really mad about that.
He had to be a nobody to succeed in his role.
Because at the beginning of Civil War, they specifically establish Iron Man's motivation being, like, here's this one character, because you have the woman that's talking about, like, their family member that died or something like that, and they are the tiny people that are getting crushed in all of these struggles, and that's what shakes Robert Downey Jr.'s character, and that's why Tony Stark is in favor of the Registration Act in that movie. Like, that's the scene that shakes him. And the villain of the movie was also another character who had a similar thing. Like, it was another character that was sort of swept up in all this stuff going on. Like, all these giant struggles happening affect people. and they're just people. But that guy showed that he's capable of he's basically capable of fighting back against this situation, even if it's probably not the best idea.
Well, I mean, he himself even admitted it. It's like, my goal isn't to fight you at all. My goal is simply to get you to destroy yourselves.
Uh-huh.
Which I thought was neat. I don't know.
Didn't they imply that he was some kind of villain that was recognizable? Didn't he have a mask?
Nope.
Or something weird?
No,
No?
I think he actually was a totally standalone character. I could be wrong about this, but
I thought there was like a gold mask sitting around somewhere.
No, he's an existing character from the Marvel comics. If you look up his name,
yes.
then you get an actual villain from Marvel Comics, but I never remember who it is. I'd have to look up like records to even find out what his name was in the movie where he was the villain. But I like that better about Civil War. Is it wasn't what I hate about Marvel movies is that they often end with like a gibberish fight where I don't care. Where like the villain and the protagonist are fighting and just hitting is happening everywhere, and it's dark and it's not really that clear what's happening, but also like watching superheroes and supervillains fight is often like really boring because like it's just two super strong things hitting each other until one of them arbitrarily loses all of a sudden, and then it's over. And it usually takes too long and it's loud and like usually doesn't have interesting things happening on the screen to justify the time being spent on it. Like it's not like choreographed cool kung fu scenes or anything. It's just like Hulk hit Yellow Hulk and Yellow Hulk hit Green Hulk and building fall over. It's dark now. Which one's yellow? Which one's green? I don't know. It's too dark. Oh, I guess the Hulk won. What a surprise. Like I hated the Hulk movies.
Yeah, they were boring.
Yeah.
And didn't they have so many reboots of that too? Because they had one with Norton. And
yeah,
then
the one in the Marvel movies is a third incarnation of Hulk in the last 10 years.
Yeah,
I really like Ruffalo, though.
He was the prototype for Spider-Man, because failed reboot, or failed series, failed reboot.
Just put him in another movie. Just put him in an Avengers movie.
I'm actually really glad that he's almost just kind of there,
just gonna
like
show
Hawkeye.
up in Thor.
Yeah, I'm so excited for Thor because every time I watch the trailers and you just see like Mark Ruffalo with that like dumb expression on his face standing
I
around.
know him from work.
Yeah, and like everybody else is in like sci-fi armor and looking like they belong, and he's just still in his outfit
because it's the Asgardians.
somehow.
Also, Goldblum is going to be the what was it? The Game Master?
Yeah, I think so. But it's just super cool looking having this like Hulk character that is really just some random nerdy dude that hulks out occasionally.
Yeah. Like there's a point that's brought up really well by, I think it was actually the Plinkett reviews for the Star Wars prequels and stuff like that, where like they talk about how like fights should
Plinkett.
be the fights should exist to convey an idea. They should be part of the story specifically. Mm-hmm. And so like when you have Luke just like wailing away and beating Vader into submission, and just like he's just angrily swinging down over and over again in Return of the Jedi until he finally takes down Vader, and like you're thinking that maybe Luke's going to the dark side, and it's just an angry person
and the symbolism of him
pummeling.
cutting off his hand.
Yeah, like there's so many scenes like that all like the fights convey an idea, and there's they fit a part of the story, and something's happening, and you can tell what's happening, and then when they're done conveying the idea, like you move on. As opposed to Star Wars Episode 3, Obi-Wan and Anakin fight on a lava planet for like half an hour. Like it's just they're just fighting, and it's like watching Advent Children at some point, where it's just fight scenes for the sake of fight scenes, and that's the entire movie. And like Marvel movies and most superhero movies have a tendency to just have like these really disappointing scenes where action's just going to happen for a while, and it's just not that interesting. And I can do action for action's sake, but if it's not going to serve the story, then at least have like really cool stuff happening during the scenes that's really memorable, and like really cool things happening. Like the Raid Redemption is like a really cool, like I think it was Malaysian martial arts movie that has like a really cool choreography where like a guy gets knocked through a door, the door splinters apart in different pieces, and there's little jagged pieces of door sticking out, and like somebody does a backflip over someone's head in a way that that makes them like body plant slam backwards so that their neck lands on the jagged piece of door, and that's creative stuff happening. There's a fight scene that happens inside of a wall. Like that's cool shit. But Marvel movies like punch, 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 and like the Wonder Woman movie ended that way too, where like there's all this setup for the final confrontation to happen, and then it's just like the most boring ever. I hit you really hard. No, you hit me really hard, and it just sucks.
And then like I will just have to like, it's one of those parts where you're like, oh, your energy is failing, you're about to lose, and then no, I have faith in myself, and
like that's what worked for me. Is like in Civil War, you have the spectacle fight, which is we're gonna have all these different showdowns, but each individual showdown versus each pairing of characters is gonna be like 15 seconds long practically, and it's gonna show the one cool thing we want to, like here's Big Ant-Man, and here's Spider-Man taking the shield, and here's Black Widow versus Hawkeye for a moment. Like it's just getting the stuff over with and showing the cool stuff and then moving on, and then getting to like, oh, here's the consequences of this fight with War Machine was like, oh, this was a mistake, and that's storytelling through a fight. And the same thing happens in the final fight, which is Bucky and Captain America versus Iron Man, and like they're ripping apart his suit, and like all this stuff's going down, and the ripping apart of the suit also means a lot based on how the suit was treated in Iron Man 3 and his relationship with the suit and what it means to him, and that which also plays into how he talks about whether or not Spider-Man needing the suit and stuff like that in Homecoming. Like that's all influenced by the character growth that happens in Iron Man 3. And like this is all storytelling and boss fights, and that's what boss fights. There's all storytelling in fight scenes, and that's why it matters and it feels good. And similarly, like I don't remember Homecoming wasting my time with its fight scenes.
I thought it was hilarious when
it didn't have that many.
No, it didn't.
There
have that
really
many.
wasn't. There's just a lot of it was Vulture almost killing Spider-Man.
Yeah, because there was the boat, there was the truck. Actually, most of the fights happened on vehicles.
Yeah.
And you have Spider-Man. Spider-Man interferes with Vulture's final big heist, and then in the process of Vulture's attempted response, the glider is damaged, and like that, like he kind of outdoes himself, and it's like, some people will be like it will act like it's anticlimactic, but I'm like I just the movie never wasted my time with a really boring scene. Like the conflict was conflicts don't only take place in the form of fighting scenes. Like there's so many other ways to do conflict between characters, even in superhero things. Because I mean, superhero comics genuinely will write a whole comic about somebody talking somebody back from a ledge from suicide. Like they're not just about fighting all the time.
My favorite and my least favorite scene is kind of one and the same with Spider-Man, which is the extremely drawn out pre-Homecoming thing, which is Spider-Man coming up to the door, finding out the Vulture's the guy there, standing around more or less just awkwardly being like, hopping in the car, being like,
what about the whole being like kept in the car?
And then being found out because he's such a shitty actor. And I want to say that this took just as much time, and I'm probably wrong, but it felt
that
to me
scene
like
might have been as long as their entire final fight.
Yeah, exactly. And it was so much more important because it set the stage between the two of them. And I hated it because it was so awkward. And I was just like, you moron, just act natural. Even though it's been established he can't, he literally can't.
He was going on a date, well, not a date, but to the dance with the girl that he's been pining after all this time, finds out that the guy who's been selling contraband alien weaponry and nearly killed him and other innocent people multiple times is her father, and he has to awkwardly sit in the same car with him and the daughter. Like,
the perfect thing for me in all of this is, though,
and she even mentioned
I'm not sure why
the
Wonder
Stark
hates
stuff.
it exactly.
Well, I hate awkward, drawn out scenes. Like, they make me really uncomfortable.
Oh,
because awkward silences make me uncomfortable.
To make
Wait
you
till you see
or the
Inglourious
character.
Bastards.
Yeah, I tried watching that movie. I think I made it about halfway in.
That show's
and I had
like
to
Anxiety Simulator.
Yeah,
it's one of my favorite movies.
But so, I think my favorite part about all of this, not only is it kind of the reveal and the perfect.
It also, he wasn't being an idiot. It was also that the girl was straight up revealing stuff in the scene that was going to give away who he was for somebody that knows enough about it. Like, didn't you mysteriously disappear during that one time that my father got foiled? Because she doesn't know he's Spider-Man or that her father's Vulture, but she's like conveying the exact information in the scene that ruins everything for Peter.
Yep. But my favorite part, I guess the kind of ending favorite part is he gets to Homecoming and then he just leaves. Like, the entire point of Homecoming...
It's called Homecoming.
Yeah, it's lost.
Yeah.
He throws it all away almost immediately to go do the right thing or whatever. But it was actually really cool to me that you have this like long predecessor to Homecoming, and it's like,
yeah, it's a
bye.
movie. Like, the movie's called Homecoming for two reasons, obviously, because it's a homecoming for the character into the actual Marvel Universe finally, but also because, yeah, like, it's basically teasing you for the idea that the climax of the movie is going to take place at Homecoming. And then Homecoming comes and he gives you this he gives him this huge ultimatum, like, you are going to step down and let me do everything I want to do, or I'm going to go after people you love. And, like, you expect like a conundrum scene, right? Like, you expect him to be like so torn and like, what am I gonna do? And oh my god, like, do I do what's right even if it can hurt the people I love? He doesn't even question it. He literally just like walks in and walks right back out the back door, like without breaking stride, basically. It's
I feel bad for the girl.
That's who this character is. That's who this Spider-Man is. He doesn't even question whether he's gonna do the right thing.
In all of it, I really do feel bad for like the daughter and the wife. And
she got ditched by the guy that was taking her to the party, and her father gets arrested all in one night.
So she has to move across the country. Yeah. And it's actually one of those where, especially after the post-credit scene, I actually hope almost the Vulture comes back, not as a character or anything like that, but just kind of like a nod sometime down the line that he's like reformed and having a nice life out in Montana or wherever.
He actually spared Peter there.
Yeah.
Said, I don't know what you're talking about.
I thought that was actually a really... I love movies where the villain is as sympathetic, if not more so, in at least some ways, because it's like their motivations make sense. They're not just evil for the sake of evil, except for when that sometimes rarely works.
I mean, he did save him from his greed. He was going to fly off with his jetpack and explode.
What was the movie that we watched recently where the villain was completely meaningless and shitty? I mean, I guess The Arrival had those like soldiers that are like, we've been listening to a bunch of right-wing talk radio and they're saying the aliens are here to kill us, so let's blow it up.
Oh, The Arrival. We were watching The Arrival.
There was like so little development in that I was just like, I can't help but just be angry about how little attention they put into effectively
there were no villains in
turning
that
point
movie.
conflict.
No, in The Arrival, the fear was just, I mean, the villain was just the general concept of like human fear.
Yeah, I guess
unknown.
Just the execution was just so, like, quick. Like, they had a couple of nods, like, these soldiers are maybe not exactly in their right minds about all of this. And then, I don't know, there was no, like, build-up for any of that.
I mean, part of what that movie highlighted was just how there wasn't a consensus. Humanity wasn't unified, and individuals, even within the same organization or army, had opposing views and were going to act without. But then you have characters like the scientists who were actually stifled by the government and any of the program like things that they were sort of laying out for them. They couldn't do their job because of it.
I understand that, but in that movie there wasn't enough development to like any of those things. It almost felt kind of like, okay, let's go back to learning about language. Okay, let's talk about why everybody's afraid of things.
I thought they were going to spend more time with the aliens.
Let's maybe lean further away from spoiling Arrival.
Sorry.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't talk about that one specifically, but it was the only thing I could think of.
By the way, I'm just looking forward to seeing Donald Glover play Prowler.
Prowler?
That's who he's playing in Spider-Man. The character's name that Donald Glover plays is Aaron Davis.
Oh, that is something that I totally missed.
So he's the Prowler.
I've seen the Prowler before.
They just hint at, he's the guy with the purple cape and the green clothes, and he's a Master Thief character, and he's the guy that is another sympathetic villain character because he cares about the neighborhood and like it's like the fact that he has family here and he doesn't want to be a dangerous place. Is he like stealing from the rich, giving to the
poor kind of guy?
Because he's the guy that Spider-Man sticks the hand to the trunk of.
Yeah,
because he was getting.
Remember
he was there to
really
get
awkward,
weapons.
like super deep voice, like interrogation mode.
Yeah, because first he's there to buy a weapon from Shocker, and Shocker's trying to sell him on like mega guns. He's like, dude, no. This is basically what was happening in that scene. And then later on, he tells Spider-Man how to find them because he's like, I don't want that shit on the streets.
Oh,
like, that's
I was getting confused.
That's escalation.
I was thinking of Predator 2 Glover. Is this his son?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, his son's an actor.
Okay.
He's
Probably
a
more
good
famous.
actor.
Yeah. I think
He's got a whole show
Donald
called
Glover,
Atlanta that's really good.
Yeah, I want to say at this point Donald Glover is more famous / successful than his dad, but I could be wrong.
I don't know.
Here, this actor.
Yeah.
I love he does great work. By the way, I put in podcast chat an image for you.
Yeah.
I just want you to look at that thigh.
Oh yeah, there's some really bad art of Prowler.
Those quads.
That is the image they chose for the Prowler for the Wikipedia page.
My favorite bad art is that one image of Superman's chest being so far out that somebody drew him naked afterwards to show you like what his body would have to look like to fit the profile of Superman's chest.
What about the one where
art.
Captain America?
Are you sure if that's Superman? Or
it's Captain America has the
it's
really
Captain
bad
America
chest.
you're thinking of.
Oh, you're at Captain America's chest.
Yeah, that's Rob Liefeld. Rob Liefeld does some amazing nonsense.
That was that was a completely not okay piece of art. Like that was some hot bullshit. He's got like a shelf on his chest. Like,
I mean, have you ever just looked?
if you Google Captain America chest, the first image result. There's a lot of Chris Evans, obviously, from the growth formula scene, but the first image result is this terrible piece of art we're talking about.
Well,
That's,
I was going to say,
okay.
if you ever get the chance, for anybody watching this, if you want a good laugh, just Google image search Liefeld, Liefeld, and you will just find some amazing nonsense.
Like, let's see what.
What you need to look up is a YouTube clip of Stan Lee and Rob Liefeld, and Stan Lee is just tearing into Rob Liefeld on a video, and like it's a promotion, like it's like a Marvel like video that's like gonna go out there, like it's supposed to be promoting something, and Stan Lee is like actively like throwing shade at Rob Liefeld on the down low throughout the entire freaking video, and it's the best thing ever. Because Stanley is the snarkiest bastard, and he's been old for like 50 years.
Jesus Christ, this guy does not know how to draw women.
Yeah, they have the tiniest waist, the largest rib cage. Well, actually, he just draws rib cages large in general.
Let's see, it looks like it's uploaded on H Bomber Guy's channel as the top result, but it's a 3.5 minute video that you'll have to watch later. That is just Stanley being very aware of how garbage Liefeld is, basically, just to his face.
We're just looking at Wikipedia.
This is the trap of talking about movies that are connected into multi-franchise universe.
Sorry.
Yeah,
but I look forward to seeing Aaron Davis in the sequel, especially since because this movie had a sympathetic villain, and the next one already set up its next sympathetic villain, unless he's not the next villain or something.
Yeah,
but
he might almost be like the midway villain.
Maybe
where
he'll
like
be Catwoman, like a side
I think
anti-hero.
That's actually the point. He is supposed to be a crime lord / anti-hero for Spider-Man. I've seen the Prowler a couple of times, and he's never actually been opposed to Spider-Man, and Spider-Man generally leaves him alone.
It's the Catwoman thing where it's like they're not generally like actively evil characters doing horrible things, but just they're doing illegal things, basically, which there is a difference. It's not like they're not doing things that are right. It's just that everyone else is doing way worse shit. And they're doing stuff that involves who has money as opposed to who has life. Usually.
Which hopefully. I think is cool.
But I had a ton of fun with Spider-Man. I almost felt like I was cheating on Edgar Wright a little bit because I saw, like the day before I saw Baby Driver, and I had more fun in the theater with Spider-Man. And I was like, it felt weird. I'm like, why am I more psyched about the Spider-Man movie than the Edgar Wright movie? But I think that's because every Edgar Wright movie is the best viewing is always the second time I watch each one.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it is the Marvel movies are movies truly made to be enjoyable.
Really fun, yeah.
Yeah, like the Avengers movies, everything, even when it's like kind of a little bit real, it then kind of goes back to being enjoyable. And Spider-Man specifically, since it's such a young, lighthearted character that kind of can do no wrong. He makes mistakes, but he never does anything like actually bad.
Unless he's possessed by Venom.
It's super easy to just make a very likable character. It's like the Guardians of the Galaxy. It's like they're a bit dodgy at times, but the entire way through, it's just fun.
This is a character you can keep going with. This is...
Oh, yeah.
The important thing here, maybe more important than anything else, is that not only did they do Spider-Man's personality right, but they specifically do it in a way that's clear how it's separate from everyone else's personality. Because you have a big cast of characters right now. And trying to say the difference between personalities, between like let's try to talk about the character differences between War Machine and Glider Wing Man. And I'm like, one jokes a little bit more.
Yeah.
But it's like Spider-Man needs to be its own character to distinguish why it exists, and you don't want to lose the identity of the characters along the way. Because like when they made a Green Arrow show, they just made Green Arrow Batman, and then so Green Arrow doesn't have a personality because he's just Batman. I think Batman. he was always that way too.
Well,
which sucked.
Part of any group or hero team, what are the archetypes that you have? Like you have the leader, the funny guy, the nerd, the
lawful,
like
good,
strong
chaotic,
man.
Good.
Yeah,
there's always a lawful good, chaotic good contrast of like the character.
The shady emo guy.
There's the Iron Man versus the Captain America. Like this lawful stupid character has to be in there somewhere. There has to be a Captain America, Superman, and then people that don't go there. And it's for two reasons. One, to have interesting interactions between characters and delineate them as being separate, but also it shows why that specific character is so important. Like Superman is Superman because no one else is Superman. Like you have to have him surrounded by other heroes that are all there to do the right thing and all there to be good, but all have different ideas of what to do about it and are willing to go to different lengths to do that. And in certain ways are willing to compromise morality in certain contexts to accomplish greater good things. Whereas like Superman does not do those things. And so in order to set up Superman correctly, you need to not do what they did in Man of Steel. You don't make the reason why like people point out a lot of structural problems with Man of Steel and a lot of other issues. I'm just going to spoil Man of Steel, by the way, because just to talk about this because it's important for this kind of storytelling is that like to establish Superman as the character he is, there's like Man of Steel is a bad movie for a lot of reasons, but two of the things about how they got the character wrong is like he watches his own foster father die
to hide his identity.
For like 5 more minutes, practically. Like he's going to, his identity is just going to come out later anyway. But also, by the way, his dad was just he was just risking his own life to save like a dog. So like his dad will risk himself to save a dog, but Superman will watch him die even though he can't get hurt by the process except for being exposed. Like that's all that could happen. But also, you don't have Superman in his origin story snap someone's neck. You don't have Superman commit murder in his first movie. You're not even subverting anything about his character at that point because you haven't even established that he won't kill yet. Like at that point, he's not Superman. And you have just you made some other fictional character that you made up for the screen wear his costume. And like that can work if you can really nail it, like Heath Ledger's Joker. But most of the time, historically with superheroes, if you don't actually stick with why people care about the character, people don't care about your movies. And that's why no one feels stuff when they watch the DC movies, is because like the characters suck. They're shitty characters.
I don't know if any of you guys have ever gone back to see the old Superman television series, but I actually thought that Reeves' version, I believe it was George Reeves, because Chris Reeves was in the 70s movies, but George Reeves' version of Superman was actually really witty. It's interesting, like, seeing a guy cracking jokes as Superman, but it was good, though. It was really good.
His name was really George Reeves.
Yes.
I've never heard that name before, so when you said that, I had to Google it because I thought you were making up a person. But no. There's really a George Reeves and Christopher Reeves that both play Superman. That's not confusing.
And I think it's odd because Ben Affleck had actually done a movie as George Reeves, like why he committed suicide kind of thing.
Oh, that's a weird connection. That's a really weird connection to have.
Actually, it's funny. I was watching a thing about why Daredevil was so bad. And the reason why Affleck actually took that role was because he thought he would never be offered Batman.
Wow. Oops. Well, funny how that works out.
And now he's Batman.
Also, if you Googled Ben Affleck Superman, you get a lot of... I Googled Ben Affleck George Reeves, but instead I got a lot of pictures of Ben Affleck dressed as Superman for some reason.
That's weird.
Well,
I don't know what that's from.
Well,
he looks like George Reeves.
Well, right. So in the movie, they may have done a little thing where, the unfortunate thing about George Reeves was after they had wrapped up the Superman series, he was just so tied to the character back in the 40s that he could barely find other work. Like, he popped up in a couple more, like, detective flicks and other things, but people just saw him as Superman, and that's what sort of caused a downward spiral for him. That's sad.
So, I wanted to say one last thing about Spider-Man, seeing as we're kind of wrapping this up.
Okay.
I really appreciated that he didn't make his costume this time. Like, the past two Spider-Man movies, he just suddenly has made this, like, high-tech, really ridiculous-looking suit.
In fact, at one point, he does put on a costume he made himself, and it's bad.
And it's just, like,
so shitty. It's great. Stuff. Like, it reminded me of, in the first movie, Spider-Man, the first... the one with the Green Goblin, I don't know. Remember?
I mean, that always ranked as one of the things where, like, if you're going to accept it, you, like... If you see him in his, like, Spider-Man costume in either of the other trilogies, like, you just have to be like, yeah, hand wave. Like, you just have to, like, literally just accept it without thinking about it, or it's a huge distraction. Because, like, there are
and it was always super distracting
costumes.
For me. Because he kept, like, tearing it up and getting it ripped and... like shot or whatever.
It's like, who's fixing your costume, Mr. Secret Identity?
So many of them were covered with like nicely done silicone or polyurethane like webbing, external like stuff on top, and I'm just like, like I'm imagining that if Spider-Man actually did like
you don't have
make
a Lucius
costume...
Fox.
Yeah, if he made a costume for himself, he probably would have had to like stitch together two different bodysuits of like red and blue, and then marker on the black lines. I mean...
Just on a logistical level, trying to imagine Tobey Maguire making that costume is, like, horrifying. Like, how many steps would be involved, and, like, how much is that distracting from him just doing what he wants to do is, like, saving people? Especially
because, like, in later movies, he's, like, living in a one-bedroom apartment and stuff like that, and it's just like... not buying it.
I've made tons of costumes before, especially armor suits, and they take up an entire room.
Yeah.
When you have all your materials lying around and you're trying to stitch things together.
He just gets his costume for free from the guy that has infinite resources.
Yeah.
Ta-da!
But, like, the fact that he started with that and he had to effectively beat the rest of the movie in his shit costume once it gets taken away, I thought that was really nice. I thought that was perfect. And then he gets the really good costume and he's like, nah.
And by the end, he barely even needs a costume because at the end, the villain knows who he is already.
Yeah.
Well, the hilarious thing, too, was I loved it when they revealed that Gwyneth Paltrow and everyone had a huge press briefing all ready for Spider-Man to like be announced as like his new sidekick or something.
The new Avenger.
And then, what are we going to do instead? Oh, engagement.
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, it was a test. And he just like lets him think it was a test, and it wasn't a test at all. Like he didn't think that far ahead at all.
Yeah, I think the line was like, that like 14-year-old, 16-year-old kid just proved that he's a more mature person than anyone else in this building, or something like that. And
there was a line like he actually just had like a really mature decision moment just now. Yeah, completely caught me by surprise, or something like that.
And he's like, I feel like a proud father, kind of thing.
But he had actually said that Spider-Man in that moment had been more mature than any of the other Avengers.
But also, it totally was not a test, and he totally did not plan for that to happen.
Well, yeah, it's because no matter how sage Iron Man can come across, he's not. He's a giant man-child.
He's a compulsive person with tons of money that does irresponsible things constantly, even when he knows they are. But his revelation, like his reaction to Spider-Man, is so genuine when that happens, when he does make that call, because of, Iron Man 3. The whole your suit isn't who you are as the superhero thing was like that entire movie that not everyone watched.
I like that movie.
It makes me wonder.
It's better than 2.
It makes me wonder for the next Avengers film if they're gonna like have the wedding.
I actually wouldn't be surprised if almost Iron Man getting married isn't going to be his character death.
Oh.
That I mean, it kind of depends, but you got to retire a superhero eventually, probably.
So you think that instead of killing Iron Man, they'll have him marry what's her name?
Pepper.
Yeah, Pepper Potts.
Yeah, she'll marry Pepper and then just kind of retire from being Iron Man and be like, "Go Avengers, I guess."
Yeah,
I brought new ones together, right? That they can handle it.
Yeah, so that might happen. I hope they don't do that, but it's one way to have a graceful character exit that does not involve a death.
It'd be weird if
they can't exclusively kill off every character that's going to be leaving the universe.
Wasn't there a remote-controlled suit going around, though?
Well, I mean, for a while...
Death can't be the only thank you for doing all that work as a hero.
And also, I mean, Pepper at one point dons her own suit, though I don't know if Gwyneth Paltrow would ever be in... Actually,
no,
didn't they
I don't
include
think
it?
so.
I don't think so. She's really expensive, and
the Infinity thing is going to be so dense with characters that they can't add like Pepper Potts now as Miss Iron Man or something.
Yeah,
like they can't.
Iron Woman.
It's just the same costume but with a bow. Like Miss.
Well,
it's a more feminine version.
Yeah,
I'm
the
joking,
comic,
but
the
like,
comic name for her, I believe, is Rescue or something.
Yeah. It's Rescue.
But like they're already, because they already have other. Isn't Captain Fantastic or Mr. Marvel or something? Who is it? That's like
Ms. Marvel.
No, there's Shazam or something.
Oh, Shazam, but that's DC.
But he's not called. Yeah, but he's the other character. That's is it Mr. Marvel or Captain Marvel? Someone's coming. Someone named Marvel or Shazam or something is coming into into Infinity War. Also,
that's Captain Marvel, but it's a woman.
Yeah.
It wasn't though, was it?
There have been versions
it
of her
comes
as a
and
woman.
goes.
Yeah, I don't think the incarnation they were going with is a woman, is it?
It is.
I think it is woman now or something.
Yeah, it currently is.
But the movie.
Apparently, Captain Marvel is not going to be in Infinity War.
They actually had a woman cast as her, and they even introduced her before one of the other like Star Wars movies had come out or something. But then they trashed it.
I think they're going to be maybe bringing her on because they're the comics specifically. She's one of the more popular heroes right now, but she will not be in Infinity
the
War.
Short blonde, cropped hair, the
she
red
probably
and
won't
blue
show up until
suit.
the next generation.
Yeah,
because it seems like Infinity War is going to be the generational cutoff where they get rid of a lot of the current cast of Marvel characters, which a lot of them have had exactly trilogies so far of standalone movies, which is noteworthy. And I think they're gonna get rid of a lot of them and either kill them or retire them and replace them with newer characters. But also they're unlikely to really add new characters in the middle of the Infinity War movie because they already have the problem of having. Like, Avengers was a big cast the first time around, but by the time you got to Age of Ultron and Civil War, they have a gargantuan cast of characters there. And then you add in the Guardians of the Galaxy, and there's too many people.
Is Infinity War going to be the last quote-unquote film of the Guardians of the Galaxy series, or are they going to do more Guardians of the Galaxy afterwards, you think?
I imagine they'll do a Guardians 3. In fact, I think Guardians of the Galaxy 2 tells you there will be a Guardians of the Galaxy 3 at the end, just like the first one did. But, yeah, like I think they're just going to be mashing the existing characters together for the next movie and not bringing in too many new ones because
I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't like kind of how they mash up a bunch of their current cast, and then afterwards maybe some of them will still have like one or two movies before like tying off. So like Guardians of the Galaxy will join everybody else for Infinity War and then generally never show back up again because they've got other things to do. Ant-Man will probably gracefully exit. Maybe he's got his own thing. Maybe he will keep going.
They do have an Ant-Man and the Wasp in the works.
Yeah, but like my bet is it's probably going to be one of those where it happens and then everybody kind of splits off again, and maybe 5-10 years down the line there's another big crossover movie, but it's going to involve a lot of different people because a number of the characters will have had their plot arcs end.
And the Guardians of the Galaxy, there were at least over 13 different characters that had been cycled in and out of that.
I mean, you look up like any image people have made, like the fan images for the Infinity War, and like it already looks like a Simpsons crowd shot. Like there's so many people in that picture that like when you see the official one, I think See, I think this is the official one I'm looking right now, the one that has like Thanos in the middle, and it's clearly like a new image we haven't seen anywhere else yet with him without a headpiece. Like even that one, like they have so many missing characters in that image alone because they just can't fit everyone. It's impossible.
I mean, of this cast, I mean, I think Thor and Loki are going to be involved because they have the blue gemstone.
Oh shit! I forgot about Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange.
Vision has the yellow one. Strange has the green one. Who has the red and the?
I'm looking at this now, and I'm not actually sure if this is official. Also, it's weird that Scarlet Witch is blonde in this one.
Oh, you mean
Black Widow?
You mean Black Widow?
Yeah, sorry.
She actually does bleach her hair blonde.
Well, yeah,
in the comics
no, she's like
point.
supposed to be a disguised person. I can't tell if this is official or not because it just feels weirdly badly photoshopped. Specifically, Black Panther looks really, really out of place.
A few of them look out of place.
That might be an image from the card game.
Hard. I might have found a non-official thing because some of them look like they might be drawn, but at least features the new artwork of it's the new Thanos. That's at least a new-ish image. It's really hard to find official sources. I think it's
a new Thanos, maybe Captain America, but like Winter
Soldier Chris Evans with a beard.
Yeah, there's Chris Evans with a beard, which might be true, but like if you look, the lighting is completely wrong on each and every one of them.
Oh yeah, it switches.
Drax is straight up a movie still.
A lot of these look like they were just sort of
Black
painterized.
Panther and Incredible Hulk are both drawings.
Yeah, and maybe Spider-Man? It looks like Spider-Man.
It's really hard to tell for Spider-Man. That might be a video game still. From the video game.
Actually, that is the video game still from the upcoming Insomniac.
No one can twist their body that way.
Also, he is going to crotch bump Doctor Strange if he keeps going in that trajectory. So
also, his body can't twist that far.
Yeah, and also, I can't imagine the empath girl from Guardians of the Galaxy would be placed anywhere close to that. Actually, what the hell's with this placement to begin with?
Maybe not the empath girl, but the girl that's played by the girl from, was it Gilliam? Oh,
are you talking about Nebula?
Yeah.
Okay.
She's gonna, despite being a seemingly minor character, she'll have to be in it because she's like Thanos' daughter.
Yeah.
Well, she's one of the daughters. I think she might be blood daughter. No, or maybe she's adopted too.
Yeah, they're both adopted.
Like they're both adopted.
Karen has no blood children.
Gillen, that's who I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She played Amy
children.
in Amy in Doctor Who.
Yep.
That's a weird. I can't unsee it whenever I'm watching the Guardians movies. I'm like, that's just Amy bald.
Yep.
Like I think it's supposed to be just like a sufficient amount of makeup to make it not super obvious, but I'm like, no.
But then she opens her mouth and talks, and she's like,
the Doctor Who
Amy
companion.
Bond.
And also, she already like. Did you see the episode of Doctor Who where there's like time travel Amy and like you could see old Amy and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Like,
I think that was actually one of the last ones I saw from that.
Like, that one with like badass time travel Amy and like wearing like robot parts as armor. Like that one was close enough to Nebula in voice acting that it's like it's too similar now, and I can't. Because that was a cool episode. That was a cool
episode.
So are all the gems accounted for?
Yes. So Vision's just gonna die, right?
Probably if he gets his head.
He has an Infinity Stone in his head, and the whole point of the story is Thanos has to get the Infinity Stones to make the story happen.
So, I wouldn't be surprised if Vision doesn't exist for a short bit and then just dies horribly.
Yeah.
And then maybe they revive him at the end because he's also a robot.
This poor character just exists to die.
Yeah.
That's the problem of having a character. That's one of the downsides of having an adaptation as opposed to being there when the old stories are being made up from scratch along the way. Is that sure? There's the whole it's when you're watching it made up the first time, it feels like there's no plan for a lot of stuff, and it kind of feels like they pull stuff out of their ass when you're watching stories in progress. But when you watch the adaptation, there's some stuff is just such a foregone conclusion. Like, hey, look, they just birthed a character out of nowhere that has an Infinity Stone in his head. R.I.P. Like, the moment he's born, you're like, he's gonna die because he has an Infinity Stone in his head. Like that I think he needs to live. Like I think
I
that's
could
a big
actually
deal.
see a lot of the movie be about them trying to safeguard him above all else,
I forget.
and then failing, and then
Yeah, he might be the last. Because
Okay,
I could see them.
These fan-made posters are really good. There's really good ones. It's hard to tell which ones are real. God damn it. I found one that looks so real, and it's not.
Yeah, no, that's very, very obviously not. Once again, the lighting is so different on each and every one
you know,
of them.
they paste a lot of.
However,
the
they at least got the
together.
right
Getting
Spider-Man
so
this time
close.
Part of it
man.
is-
Do any of you think this will be good or no?
I think it will be par for the course for the rest. I haven't heard of any kind of developmental hell, and I have yet to see a like Marvel reboot movie that was even remotely close to mediocre. So
Even Age of
my
Ultron?
assumption is, I liked Age of Ultron. I thought it was one of the worst of their like current line, but I still enjoyed it.
I still haven't seen it.
Well, I found the most fake one because I found one that has the Netflix characters in it too.
Oh boy.
Oh,
That's
Yeah, the
technically
Defenders.
Those characters are part of the same universe.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to remember sometimes, but the Netflix shows and the Marvel shows and the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. all take place in the same universe, technically.
And are they doing the Inhumans too? That's
yeah,
gonna
they
be
are.
Weird.
They're doing the
Yep.
Inhumans.
And
But like a lot of those, like the
there's-
Defenders, have nothing to do with the Avengers generally,
No,
and for the most
they're-
part,
they're
are kind of this like
Spider-Man.
minor group.
They're
Yeah.
like Spider-Man. We're like, this is our neighborhood. Shit's going down. I'm going to fight this one guy that's a local crime boss. And that's their stories.
And the Inhumans kind of take the role of occasional Gandalf or like Atlantis, where they live on the fucking moon and just stay there because everybody else is scary or something, and almost never show back up, except for apparently Black Bolt is on the Marvel High Council for some reason.
So I would love to be surprised by Infinity War, but it screams the idea of that it will have like this too many
It'll be a
characters
mess.
problem.
Yeah.
Especially
they
since
might-
didn't they cut it down from being a 2-movie thing to a 1-movie thing? So it's going to be
Yeah.
maybe more condensed, which is
Oh,
I think it's
This-
good to go into it with low expectations just because of what it aspires to be is probably
yeah.
bigger than they're capable of doing.
they probably would have had to done something like The Hobbit, where The Hobbit was extended for 3 films.
Like maybe, just maybe, they can take that fight scene from Civil War that was surprisingly good and
Yeah.
surprisingly full of character little moments and stuff, and stretch that for an entire film. And they have a lot of money to spend on writers if they can
Well-
to try to find the right people for this stuff. But
This is sort
this
of
could be
my
a disaster.
Yeah, this is my prediction. I think. Well, first off, there are the 5 stones. Is it?
Yeah.
There are 5 stones. I'm thinking that, sure, while we have the Avengers, there's going to be like separate groups of them. Because like there's Thor and Loki and his stone on Asgard and whatever. There's Doctor Strange and his stone. There's Vision. So they have their different stones and stuff. And I think one's going to get taken or something. And everyone's going to be like, oh no. And then they're like, well, we need to find the other ones. Who has them? And then Doctor Strange is like, well, I conveniently have one. And Vision's like, oh no, what about this thing that I have? And then they're going to, like, maybe one more gets taken after a scuffle or something, and the Guardians of the Galaxies intervene, and they're like, oh yeah, we might want to inform you who precisely is after these things. Oh yeah, it's our evil god daddy Thanos guy. And they're like, oh, do you mean the aliens that attacked us the last time? And it's like, ah. And then they're going to have different fights here and there. One by one, the stones, maybe some of the heroes will fall until it's like a last group that has to fight off Thanos.
I feel like best
Sounds like a
case
mess.
scenario,
It's a
we
mess.
get like the Mass Effect 2 suicide mission.
Yeah.
Like that's like the best case scenario. Everyone has a particular skill and they're going to handle these particular parts. Hawkeye's going to have to just really do some kind of really cool shot. Maybe he dislodges an Infinity Stone with an arrow because that's like all he could conceivably do in this scenario because he's Hawkeye. He just
I
has a
actually
bow.
would love it if Hawkeye was the one that saves the day, or just like the most regular people.
Just the last
Hawkeye,
shot.
like Hawkeye, the Falcon.
If you put Hawkeye in this dumb of a setting, like the only way you can justify his existence is if he pulls off one ridiculous, like vital shot at some point in the story. Otherwise, Hawkeye will be like Killer Croc and Captain Boomerang in the Suicide Squad movie, which is that they don't have a reason to exist.
No, even more so the grappling hook guy that blew up immediately.
Yeah. Like in the oh man, do you think someone's just gonna die immediately? Like one character's just gonna be gone right away?
I could see it.
The obvious contender is obviously Vision, but I think maybe someone more we're more attached to.
I feel like
he
hasn't had enough development, so like we wouldn't be crushed by it.
I think he's going to be the last one to get his stone taken.
Think there'll be a gut punch moment? You think it'll kill Nebula?
I could very much see Hawkeye dying immediately, because even in Civil War, he wasn't really a contender. He was just kind of there to keep the status quo, safeguard people, and everybody's friend. So the idea of Hawkeye,
going to die near the end. She's going to get killed by Thanos.
I think Nebula might be an early death. I think that the entire last Guardians of the Galaxy movie was trying to set up... The entire last Guardians of the Galaxy movie we got felt like that last episode where... It felt like when you're watching a television show and a character's going to die that episode, and you technically don't know that yet, but all those signs start coming in for like closure and character arcs that all warm up to the part where that character dies later that episode.
Right, because
Guardians 2 felt like Nebula's death movie.
It's the classic when we get back from this, I'm going to get married to my sweetheart, and then the guy dies tragically, and you feel bad for him.
Well, I was thinking from the perspective of they hate each other's guts. Gamora's like, I never intend to hurt your feelings, Nebula. I just wanted to win. And Nebula is like, but our father tore my body apart because of it. And it's like, well, we're going to get revenge on Thanos. And Gamora's like, well, that's something that we can agree on. And then she's like, yes, I will destroy him. And I think she's going to die destroying him.
Maybe.
If they destroy him.
That was the setup of Guardians 2, was that whole that whole back and forth. But I think Nebula dies, and that becomes Gamora's big moment for her in the movie. Because
I thought that they would give Nebula her wish.
It feels like somebody's almost inevitably going to get killed for stakes reasons, just to rise stakes. Yeah. And they can't kill Coulson again.
No, they can't. Well, yeah, at this point, Coulson hasn't even been seen in the movies.
Wait,
for
you're
a while.
talking about the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because he got killed in the first Avengers movies for stakes, except for not really. Yeah. I want to hope they actually have the guts to kill off somebody more important than kind of the villain. It would be pretty nuts if they just kill off one of the main line.
Do you think they're going to kill Captain America?
We care about Nebula more than Vision at this point.
Yeah, we care about Nebula more than Vision, which is why Vision probably won't get killed off. But
he'll still get the gem ripped out of his head.
Well, if, say, for example...
I think Vision's the last Infinity Stone they get. He's getting all the Infinity Stones. It's we have to all defend Vision because he's got the last one, and of course they fail eventually, and so when Vision dies and Thanos gets the Infinity Gauntlet all set up and stuff. But I think someone needs to die early on to establish the threat, because you have to establish a threat that justifies bringing in every character. It's all of them. It's so many characters. It's ridiculous.
Now, Ant-Man isn't even tied to any of the stones, is he?
No.
I don't even know if he'll be in the movie.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be in the movie. He could be, but I don't think so.
And Spider-Man isn't tied to any of the stones. He's just tied because
he's not, but he's tied to Iron Man.
Yeah.
Really strongly. And it would be kind of a weird waste to do all this setup for him being kind of like a provisional Avengers member, and then not have him show up for the big thing.
And then Iron Man's tied to it because Vision's his creation, right?
Yeah.
And Thor is tied to it because of the Infinity Stone from his father.
Honestly, we should probably stop this here, because Black Panther's coming out before Infinity War, right?
Is it really?
I think so.
I think it's coming out later this year.
Remember, at the end of Civil War, the Avengers were broken up really hard. And I can't imagine that they're going to do the reunification plotline at the same time.
Well, I think
this universe is going to
like
get really busy.
Something like the Infinity War would be the reason for the Civil War cast to get back together.
So Infinity War is...
Ant-Man's going to be in Infinity War, and he's going to survive.
Okay.
Because Infinity War comes out May 4th, but Ant-Man and the Wasp comes out July 6th.
Okay, so Black Panther is February. Infinity War is May. So
and Ragnarok is November.
So we could lose Black Panther.
Yeah, we could lose Black Panther early.
Black Panther would be weird just because they're setting him up, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they could be setting him up. They could actually resolve the Black Panther. They could resolve a lot of character arcs before
Do you
Infinity
think Black
War.
Panther might be a one-movie character? Or do you think they want to use him for a trilogy like everyone else?
I think the problem
I
is...
don't know.
Because even
let's go
Ant-Man's getting a sequel.
Yeah.
Because what if the Black Panther movie is such a big success and they already have him slated to be killed off in Civil War? That'd be bad for them.
I don't think so. I think Black Panther is going to be their attempt at resolving a lot of these plot arcs early so that it rolls into Infinity War smoothly. Because right now it's too big of a gap to jump.
I think the kill list for Infinity War of people that can die are
What about Hulk?
all the people that have finished their trilogy. Any of them could die, and anyone who doesn't have their own movies.
What about... Yeah, that leaves Hulk. Hulk doesn't have his own movie.
Hulk doesn't have his own movies, but Hulk is a pretty big deal character that hasn't got a lot of screen time yet.
Yeah, Hulk dying, I think, would feel really weird
feel
because,
bad.
well, he's kind of baseline one of the true invincible characters. Because the more you hurt Hulk, even in banner form, the stronger he gets as the Hulk. So, like,
we'll have to see how much Thor finishes his arc because they're setting up the idea of Smart Hulk and Talking Hulk being a thing that comes up now. So we'll see how far that goes over the course of the movies.
I was going to say we should probably just kind of nip this Spider-Man spoiler cast in the bud here, and
it's just the Marvel.
At this point, I'm calling it the
Spider-Man
Homecoming and Marvel Universe spoiler cast.
Spoiler cast, yeah, it works
because it is both.
We should
and Homecoming's trendy.
We should reconvene after Ragnarok, and then again after.
We'll have to do a Ragnarok spoiler cast. We'll just have to do a spoiler cast after every Marvel movie because I assume you're just going to watch them all, right?
Every mainline one.
Oh yeah.
Like I don't really feel like
movies.
spoiler casting, Ant-Man or
you don't want to do spoiler cast for Ant-Man and the Wasp.
I mean, I would, but they don't have nearly as much like in-universe impact, so it doesn't seem as necessary.
We could talk again about how they screw up their own rules.
Yeah.
Did that piss you off in Ant-Man?
Yeah.
Was this about the shrinking or?
Yeah, everything gets bigger or
past.
smaller, and it maintains its weight. And then it's like, okay, so that ant should be flying away, right? And so should that tank. Nope, that tank's full weight. I'm like, but it was on his keychain. How did he carry a whole tank? It's like they broke their own rules almost immediately after telling us what they were. But yeah, we got to stop because we've been talking for well over 2 hours about the Marvel Universe.
I need to pee. I was like, okay, we're doing 2 1-hour podcasts, so I don't need to go to the bathroom.
We'll have to get back to that some other time, I think.
Yeah, some other day. There's no rush.
Thanks for watching, like always, guys. Send your questions to FourNerdsQuestions@gmail.com. We normally answer them when we're all here and not doing a spoiler cast. And I told you guys, I promised you that I'd eventually do a spoiler cast for a movie I liked. Because it hasn't happened yet.
And we barely talked about it.
But we covered all the twists and all the major points that happened. Yeah. We just glazed over certain elements a lot because we kept getting sidetracked because this is our first extended Marvel discussion, I think, really.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
So, thanks for watching like always, guys, and I'll see you next time.
Yeah.